Good, eve- good evening. Welcome to the June 6th council meeting. If you'd please stand, Councilman Burton is going to lead us in the flag salute.
Please place your right hand on your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two presentations this evening. I'd like to invite the council down for the first presentation, if you come down with me. This is Chino Youth Boxing Foundation presentation to the council. I'd like to call up all the members of the Chino Boxing Foundation, please. Come on up. Hi, Michael. Good. How are you? Okay, who's going to be the spokesperson?
I think I am.
You are.
I don't
Okay.
like it, but I have to do it.
You'll be fine.
Hi, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Garcia. I'm the president of the boxing club. Let me introduce Nikki. She's our treasurer. Maria, our secretary. And Ray, coach, is our vice president. It's an honor tonight to be here to honor the council. We have a plaque for them, an award to the mayor and the council for the support that they give our foundation. It's a great organization that we belong to. And we're here to honor you guys.
Well, that's nice of you. It's very nice of you. Tell the audience a little bit about the foundation, Mike.
Sure. The foundation is a boxing club where we have kids come over, box. We send them out to different places, different shows where they box with other clubs, and basically to keep them off the streets, off the drugs, all that dirty things, and keep them good and keep them in school and do good for their lives. It's a very good organization. I'm glad to belong to it for so many years. So it's very awesome.
I think, Mike, you started with that foundation when you were just a little guy
Yes.
and still in school,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yes.
No, it is a wonderful organization, and it has helped so many young people, keep them out of trouble and keep them on the straight and narrow. And Coach Ray has been absolutely amazing, along with some of the other coaches as well. I mean, they're just great mentors. So thank you very much for the recognition. Do you guys want to say anything?
No,
No? Ray, do you want to
Ray.
say anything?
Yes.
Ray always likes to talk.
I know I talk too much sometimes.
This one is presented to the Chino Boxing Foundation with sincere appreciation. We are pleased to present to Mayor Eunice Oyola for all the help that you have given us, the support that you've given to us.
I want to take this time real quick to thank the councilman, the mayor. Ever since I started 20-some years ago, you've always been supportive to us. It gives me an honor and a pleasure to present you that, because, I mean, you've always supported the boxing program here in the city of Chino and the rest of the council. So we want to recognize you guys. If I could read it real quick. With our sincere appreciation, we are pleased to present Mayor Pro Tem Karen Comstock with this award in recognition of your contributions and continued support for the Chino Youth Boxing Program, June 2023.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you so much. I know. Also, Council Member Mark Lucio. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen.
Oh, you're welcome, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is for Curtis Burton.
I'll-
That's me. Yeah.
Curtis Burton, the newest member. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. You did a lot for the program, too.
And last but not least, Chris.
Krista Flores, thank you so much. We are having a August 26th, a dinner show, and Mr. Flores will be participating with one of the boxers from the Chino program. So I hope everybody comes out and roots for him. Just a little plug here. It'll be a dinner, and it'll be 6 exhibitions, including Mr. Flores, and we hope everybody comes out and joins us. But we thank you guys so much for all you've done for the boxing program. Your just caring, your dedication that you put forth for us. It really shows for the kids. It's all about the kids. It really is. So thank you guys so much. Okay? And thank you. Thank you. One more thing I forgot to mention. There's a new coach. His name is Daniel. They just told us I'm not sure if I was supposed to say it, but he grew up. He was 8 years old when he started with the program. He's now, I believe, 22, 23. I forgot how old he is, but and he's going to start with the program. And we need kids like that started with the program, and they have the heart for the program. So, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Get in shape. You got to get in the gym.
Now listen, Ray, one thing. You have to make sure he has a really good helmet on. You can't hurt him.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. We're going to train. Carla, you're going to put him through training? All right. Thanks, Mike. That's very sweet of you. Next, we have Business of the Month, June 2023. Excuse me. So often we have community businesses that provide goods or services within our city that are completely overlooked until they're needed. We drive past their vehicles or places of business throughout the community and don't think twice about them until we are in need. And then we can't wait to connect with them fast enough. For the month of June 2023, we would like to recognize Pro Towing as our Business of the Month. Will the representatives for Pro Towing, Sarkis and Kevin Kara Oglinian, come on up and please join me in front. Sarkis, can't you just be Sarkis K?
Sarkis Case.
Sarkis K.
Good seeing you.
Good seeing you too.
How are you? How are you?
Pro Towing is a local AAA contracted tow company who provides roadside services to the city of Chino. This family-owned and operated business has been in Chino for the past 16 years. Not only do they own Pro Towing, but they also own and operate Chino Auto Repair and Collision, which provides auto maintenance and restoration services to members of the Chino community. Daily, Pro Towing provides roadside assistance to the residents of Chino during times of emergency. As a contractor to the city, they are on a weekly rotation with the Chino Police Department to assist with any towing needs to ensure that traffic collisions are quickly cleared and that city roadways are kept clear of obstructions. And I can't turn the page. As a Chino community member, Pro Towing helps to support local nonprofits such as Isaiah's Rock by providing them with free roadside services, volunteering and making donations whenever possible. Pro Towing noted that there are lots of great communities in the western end of the empire, but they chose Chino as its home base because of the business location and Chino's business-friendly zoning code. Pro Towing appreciates that the roads and infrastructure are well maintained by the city, which makes their job easier. Let's hear it for the road crew. Please congratulate Pro Towing for providing outstanding service to our community and for being our June 2023 Business of the Month recipient. I'd like to present you with this plaque for your office, and it reads, Pro Towing, June 2023, Chino Business of the Month. City of Chino thanks you for being a part of the Chino community, and it's presented today. Would you like to say a few words, Sarkis?
I'd like to say thank you for being chosen for the month of the business, and I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity that city allow us to be continuing doing business in the city of Chino. And we are proud and happy owners, and we see a further brighter future within the city of Chino, working in city of Chino. Thank you, everyone.
Well, I've had, I guess you'd say, the pleasure of using your services a couple of times. It wasn't a pleasure at the time, but your drivers are excellent. I mean, they're just so polite, so kind, and just really, really good. So if you need to call a towing service, I really recommend that you call Pro Towing because they're a great, great company.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Oh, I forgot a picture. I always forget pictures. Now, if you operate or know of a business in the community that you'd like to nominate for a future Business of the Month, please visit cityofchino.org/biz awards to make your nomination today. Thank you. Okay, we did have a closed session prior to convening this meeting, so I'd like to ask our city attorney to please give us a report out of that meeting.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and everyone present. The city council did commence the discussions of the labor negotiations identified on the agenda and has not completed those discussions, so it would be appropriate to withhold the report until after the city council reconvenes and comes out of closed session. So I will provide a report at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. City Manager Wright, do we have any agenda revisions or additions?
No changes, Mayor.
Okay. Under public announcements, first, please make sure you come out to the city's next installation of its household hazardous waste collection event on Saturday, June 10th, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Public Works Services Yard located at 5050 Schaefer Avenue. This will provide Chino residents a safe way to dispose of hazardous waste, including electronic waste, motor oil, antifreeze, batteries, pesticides, paints, and tires. For any questions, please call the Public Works Services Center at 909-334-3266. Lastly, I'm happy to announce that the Chino Summer Nights are back. Chino Summer Nights will occur every Friday night at 6:30 p.m., with the exception of June 30th because of our fireworks spectacular carnival. Now, these Friday nights are going to be from June 16th to July 28th at the City Hall lawn. The event will include family fun, movie-themed activities, food, retail booths, and of course, family-friendly movies under the stars. For this year, we're excited to showcase on June 16th, DC League of Super Pets. June 23rd, Hocus Pocus. June 30th is, of course, our fireworks spectacular carnival from 4 to 10 p.m. at Ayala Park. July 7th, the movie will be Lightyear. July 14th, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. July 21st, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. July 28th, Minions, The Rise of Gru. For all questions, please call the Carolyn Owens Community Center at 909-334-3258. Next item on the agenda is public communication. This is the time and the place for the general public to address the council about items that do not appear elsewhere. We can hear your concerns, but of course we can't take action without the item being agendized. Our first written request to speak is Pastor Brian Gentry from Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, and he's going to lead us in an invocation. So I invite all of you that would like to join us to please stand.
Thank you. Let's pray. Lord, we just come before you tonight. Father, we thank you that you are the creator of heaven and earth, Lord, and so we just come to you, Lord. We thank you for this place, this community that we call Chino. And Lord, we thank you for the leaders and the servants, Lord, that you've provided to govern over it. And so we just pray tonight, Lord, that as you guide this agenda, Lord, may you direct just the thoughts and the plans, Lord, that we do here. And Lord, that you'd provide your wisdom, Lord, your clarity, your understanding, your discernment, and Lord, the administration to work all these details out for this city. We thank you, Lord, Lord, that you're watching over this place. We pray your blessing and grace upon these leaders, upon these people here tonight. And may the people of this city, Lord, Lord, just be under your favor, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. next written request to speak is Mr. Ben Montgomery, who is the city manager of Chino Hills. There's quite a story to his being here this evening.
Good evening, Mayor Ulloa, honorable council members, Dr. Reich, members of the audience. As noted, my name is Ben Montgomery. I'm the city manager for the city of Chino Hills. First and foremost, I'm here to publicly express my gratitude to the Community Services Department in Chino. For those of you who don't know, for 32 years and running, I believe, Chino has hosted a mini Olympics for the region in the corporate challenge. I personally have been involved since I first came to the area in 2006. My first medal still hangs on my wall from that time. And it's been an amazing opportunity to, one, get to know my colleagues, my partners over in Chino, but it's also been a great opportunity for all the local businesses to participate in fun games with a good amount of healthy rivalry. And for 2 weeks, we all joined together to participate in the game. So first and foremost, let me thank Chino for your leadership in the region and hosting these games, but specifically the Recreation Community Services team that does a fantastic job of making everyone feel welcome, administering all of the events. It's an incredible mix, and I would challenge any local corporate business. This is a great opportunity to have team building with your staff and to get to know other businesses. Secondarily, I am here on a matter of pride. In 2017, Dr. Reich's predecessor, Matt Ballantyne, and I were talking about how much we both truly enjoy the healthy rivalry between the city of Chino Hills and Chino. And in the corporate challenge world, we determined that it would be nice to have a token to commemorate the wins for Chino or Chino Hills. And over the years, we have a trophy that, and I'm sorry, I have to introduce my colleague here, my security. Jesse Cortez has been our staff leader of the program for many years, and he came with me for the Walk of Shame. But it really is something that I have enjoyed. I know Linda and I have enjoyed over the years. But going back to Matt, we wanted to have an opportunity to show bragging rights between the cities. And so what I'm here today to do is present to Dr. Reich the aptly named Winner Chicken Dinner Award, which for the public, council. This plaque is was designed by Matt Ballantyne. I believe Ted Bastarkey also had a hand in this. And what it says is Corporate Challenge, Winner Chicken Dinner, Chino versus Chino Hills. So regardless of how we end up in the standings overall, whichever city triumphs over the other gets to keep this award. And on the back of the award are the dates for the wins. Beginning in 2017, Chino took the award. 2018, Chino took the award. 2019, I took the award, which was my first year as city manager, so I'm sure that Linda feels a special pride that this happened on her first year. And 2019, 21, 22, it's been collecting dust in my office, so I'm happy to bring it back home.
Wow.
We did have to give the win to COVID in 2020 since we weren't able to host the event. But it really is an awesome opportunity for us to come together as cities. And so today I just wanted to bring this award back to Chino. I believe Ted Bastarkey will engrave it for you
It's right back there.
for 1 year, and we'll be back in force next year. So thank you all for really hosting such a great event.
Thank you so much for being here. That's great. Linda, You need to go down and, Carla, get a picture with Linda and Ben.
There's definitely no milk can.
I know. Chicken. Oh, my God.
Yeah, no bone, no milk.
Oh, my God. That's ugly.
It is
Oh, my gosh. That's cute. Oh, my goodness. Okay, those are the only written requests that I have to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on an item that is not agendized elsewhere? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. I'm pulling item number 4 for information for the public. Do any council members wish to have any items pulled? No? Okay, then I would entertain a motion in a second, please. Motion from Councilman Lucio, second from Councilman Burton, and the item passes unanimously. Item number 4 is an item requesting some date changes on future council meetings. So we're going to, this item authorizes staff to cancel a July 4th, August 1st, and August 15th regular council meetings, and to schedule a council special meeting on Wednesday, July 5th at 6 p.m. to ensure that the continuation of our city business is taken care of. So with that, I would entertain a motion in a second, please, for item number 4. Motion from Councilman Lucio, second from Councilman Burton, and item 4 passes unanimously. Next, under public hearings. Prior to the vote of the City Council, any member of the audience will have an opportunity to address the council on a public hearing, council request, but it's not required that you state your name and address prior to making any remarks. Item number 9, Solid Waste, Recycling, and Inland Empire Utilities Agency sewer rate structure. This item is to conduct a public hearing, tabulate written protests, and set the rates for solid waste, recycling, and Inland Empire Utility Agency sewer services. I'd like to declare the public hearing open and announce that all protests must be submitted in writing and given to the clerk prior to the close of the public hearing. So I'd like to request a staff report now from Jocelyn Blakely, our project coordinator.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight's public hearing item concerns the IUA sewage treatment rate and the solid waste and recycling services rate. These rates are necessary to apply the pass-through charges that the IUA sewage rate and the waste management and city charges are for the solid waste and recycling services. As mentioned in the agenda report, this public hearing affords the public the opportunity to provide their input on the proposed rate structure, and we're also able to provide information regarding the changes in services which will benefit the residents of Chino. I have a brief presentation to highlight these changes for you and the members of the audience. Uh-oh. Okay, thank you. This is the 218 notice, which was mailed on April 20th, 2023. There were some copies also available on the back counter, I believe, and you can also find them on the city's website, cityofchino.org /waste. There were 3 different versions provided, and in addition to that, we've also done a outreach video on our social media to show residents how to actually read the Prop 218 notice. Okay. The 218 notice highlights the IUA sewage treatment rate, which is a pass-through charge that is established by IUA to cover the cost of providing sewage treatment services for the Greater Inland Empire area under its jurisdiction. This rate is then passed through to its member agencies, including the City of Chino. Effective July 1st, this new rate will increase to $22.50 from $23.40, which is consistent to a 4% consumer price index rate. This next section covers the solid waste and recycling rates for residential customers, which is going from $29.18 to $35.55. From this rate, $32.24 is a pass-through rate paid to Waste Management for the trash collection services and the other program assistance, and their other program assistance. The additional $3.10 is paid to the city to cover the program costs, which will be discussed in greater detail after summarizing the cost. There's also a senior rate and a low-volume generator rate, which will be increased to $31.20 from the current $26.26. Next, we have the solid waste and recycling rates for commercial, which will go up by the CPI, which is 4%, beginning July 1st, 2023. I have highlighted the organics rate since it's the change that has affected both residential and commercial customers because of Senate Bill 1383. I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that rate because it has been available since 2018, but I wanted to let everyone see that the rate changes are here as well for the upcoming noticing period. So just to give you guys a little bit of information, for Senate Bill 1383, this is state legislation that is requiring all California residents to separate food waste and yard waste from their trash and recycle it in a separate organics cart. The goal of this legislation is to reduce material going to the landfill. According to CalRecycle, organics make up half of what Californians now throw away. As you can see, the regulations took effect in 2022. By 2025, there should be a 75% reduction in landfill organics waste. Aside from the organics collection, there are additional programs that the hauler has to implement. A lot of those are highlighted here. Some of those things include route reviews, monitoring waivers, minimizing contamination, keeping record of some of the requirements, and also reporting information to the state on actions that are being taken. In addition, there are some additional challenges that, or not challenges, additional requirements that the city will also have to implement with this new legislation. Okay, so what's new? Organics recycling, which I just briefly covered, is basically throwing away food. This includes food waste, yard waste, produce, dairy, breads, pastas, food soiled papers, things of that nature. This organics collection is going to be done in your green waste cart to go along with your yard waste. All materials will be placed inside of your cart loosely with no plastic bags. No silverware, utensils, plastic containers will be allowed in that area. It's going to be strictly food. And as said before, this is going to be throughout the state of California. Some of the benefits that we will receive with this new legislation is we will also have increased compost available to our residents. With this process, as the food is being collected, it would also be composted. And this is a video or a picture, I should say, from when we visited the composting facility to just give you an idea of some of the compost that will be available to our residents. In addition to the organics and the collection of the food waste, it will also, having this program will also extend the life of our California landfills. It will make sure that our landfills do not fill up with a lot of the organics waste that could be used for different purposes. It can be composted, it can be repurposed and not used as greenhouse gases, which is what happens when it goes to the landfill. In addition, to highlight some of the new changes for our customers, we also need to see that with this program, there are some requirements for the city to make sure that commercial edible food generators are through our process are also inspected and provided information so that they can help the food insecure. We must have a food inspection program to verify edible food recovery arrangements with some of the food donation locations and also the food generators. Aside from that, there will be increased education and outreach activities. We are required to annually educate all organics waste generators, commercial food generators, and self-haulers about the different requirements of SB 1383. Businesses and residents will be notified regarding a lot of these regulations, and there will also be a lot of workshops and outreach events that will provide some of that information to them. We will have some workshops for residents. In addition, we will also do some outreach activities. Some of the things I have on here are some of the counter food waste containers that will be provided to residents that attend different outreach community events. We do have some planned coming up we would like to be part of, or we have planned to be part of the Chino Summer Nights to have different outreach booths so that hopefully we can provide information to those that have questions regarding the organics program. So this slide summarizes a lot of what the requirements are. So aside from the actual organics collection services, which is done by Waste Management, they have other hauler programs that will be performed as well. There will be some contamination minimization and then some waivers that we will have to keep track of. In addition to that, there's going to be the education and outreach. The edible food recovery programs will also have some procurement processes that have to be done from the recycled organic waste. In addition, there is some recycled paper procurement that we'll have to do, and then maintaining commercial edible food generators records. Lastly, there's also jurisdiction inspections and enforcement that are required, and all of these records have to be maintained and provided to CalRecycle and reported to them on an annual basis, and also at any time that they request information, we have to provide that. So this program is more than just picking up the actual organics collections that is out there. There's a lot of different components to it. So thank you for your time. I wanted to also just add that this public hearing process is going to satisfy the Proposition 218 procedure requirements. There were 20,194 notices mailed. Therefore, the city clerk will need to receive 10,098 written protests to preempt the proposed rate structure. If you guys have any questions for me, please let me know and I'll be able to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Council comments or questions? Chris, do you have anything this evening?
I guess my first question would be, how many protest letters did we receive?
She'll be going over that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Karen, do you have anything? I didn't.
Jocelyn, we're in a day and age where everything is very expensive. This is certainly a very expensive mandate to implement by the state for our waste haulers, as well as some challenges for our residents. You mentioned in your presentation you're going to talk about the additional $3.10 that is being implemented by the city as part of the fees to implement this program moving forward. Every penny counts for every American right now, and I'm wondering how we came up with that figure and what it's going to be used for.
So the pass-through to waste management is $32.24. That $3.10 are the additional fees that we are basically collecting as a city to make sure that we have all the programs in place to cover the things that have to be done in accordance with SB 1383. So that includes the inspection services, that includes the contamination monitoring, that includes all the outreach activities, that also includes our costs to do some of the services and to make sure that we stay in compliance with SB 1383.
How will we evaluate that figure moving forward? So first-year cost, we've come up with that figure. How do we evaluate whether it's high, low, or how do we move forward from that? Because I'm sure people will want to know what happens if we collect too little or too much money.
Exactly. So this first year fee is based off of projections. Because we haven't separated the recycling at this point in time, we're not sure what tonnage is actually going to be collected. So once we see what that tonnage number is, if that number is too high for what we need, we will adjust it accordingly. If it's too low, though, we wouldn't have collected enough to cover the bills that come in to actually provide the services.
Are other cities collecting an overage as well to implement this? Do you know our surrounding cities?
I actually am not totally aware if other cities are collecting overages as well.
That's all I have right at the moment, Kurt.
Kurt?
Hi, Jocelyn. Thanks for the report. Can you explain what pass-through means as far as the rates for IEUA and waste management? So everybody has a good understanding of what that means.
Okay. A pass-through is basically the cost of doing the actual service. So whatever we're going to be charged, whatever it costs to actually do the service, that's the rate that's provided to us. So all we're doing with the pass-through is paying what it costs to deliver the service.
So we're collecting the money for waste management and we're collecting the money for IEUA, is that correct?
Yes.
That's
and
not
then-
coming from the city. We're doing their job for them as far as collecting the monies on the utilities, correct?
Yes, because they're representing us on that side, providing the service.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody understands that it wasn't as a result of a city tax. Again, it's just another way the state of California is trying to get local control and do the things that I don't believe they should be doing, but nonetheless, can you explain the low volume rate and how that is determined?
Yes, so the low volume generator rate, you can request that if you believe that you have a low volume generation of trash services. So with that, you actually receive a smaller cart. The current 3-carts are 96 gallons. If you determine that you have a low volume of waste, then you could actually request to get that lower rate and you'll get a 64-gallon cart to collect that amount of trash.
So if you can fit everything into the smaller container, you're in good shape, right?
Yes.
Okay. On the new containers, the organic containers, are they going to be airtight, or how is that going to be set up?
You mean the ones that are collected at the home?
Yes, are these an example of what everybody's going to get?
No.
Or no.
Okay, so those are the recycling countertop containers. So that is going to help you take your organics to your big cart. So it's going to be your same green cart that you currently have. The newer cart will have imprinted information to make sure that you know what is supposed to go inside that green cart. So it won't be airtight, it'll be the same green container that you have. The changes to make it SB 1383 compliant will be the signage that's going on it. But that small one you'll keep inside your home, and then to help you take the food waste to the big cart, instead of you bringing your big cart from your driveway or backyard into your home, you take that one and you pour those items into your green cart and mix it with your green waste.
Okay, so you can't put a liner in here and then put your food into it and then close the liner to put into the container for whatever reason. And now we've got a fly issue as well as maybe rodents or anything else that could potentially be looking for food and or smell and other issues on hot summer days. Is that correct?
That's partially correct. You can put a paper bag in there. So it's not a liner, but it is a way to collect things in a bag so then you could possibly throw it into the bigger cart and have it secluded in that area. But yeah, the smells and things that you brought up, that is not something that is included with that small cart.
That's gonna be a major problem, folks, and I'm not sure how we're gonna correct that, but that's the state regulations, is that what they're making the, that's what they're requiring, correct?
They're requiring us to collect the food separately with green waste, yes, organics.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of people are into gardening and composting, and I've always been told that you do not mix fats, meats in with your composting material, that it has to be just vegetation. So I'm really troubled by this new legislation and don't quite understand how this is going to work, because I know meat gets putrefied. If we ever accidentally leave something out for more than a couple of days in the summertime, whatever it happens to be, the stench is pretty bad. I'm really concerned about this, and I'm not sure. I'm going to ask Linda to come up and explain how in the world they're going to handle this mixture with food in it. But I just I agree with Curtis. I'm concerned, Jocelyn, with, you know, what's going to happen with odors and flies and the attraction of rodents and that sort of stuff. Now, like our green waste bin, if something is put in there that has a moisture content, like if it's rained and the gardener mows the lawn and puts the grass in there, that moisture leaks. Food waste oftentimes has moisture in it, and if that leaks, that is going to really be messy and smelly. And I'm hoping that when we collect our data, that we also report the negative impacts that this possibly may have, because I think the legislature has not really fully thought this through. I think there's going to be some unintended consequences from this new law that we're going to deal with that could be potentially pretty bad. So I know their intent is to decrease the waste stream, but I think the problems that it's going to cause is going to be worse. I can't imagine a restaurant throwing all of its leftover food in a trash container that's going to sit there a couple of days. I think theirs is collected more than once a week, but still, even a couple of days. I mean, I think it's going to get pretty messy. Any other comments from council? Yes, Chris?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, when it comes to, you know, the mayor just mentioned these restaurants throwing, right, food away, extra food away. Is there talks about these businesses teaming up with some of our local nonprofits who have, you know, provide like food ministries or food services to be able to, you know, essentially give them that food so they can give away, so it's not necessarily thrown away?
Yeah, that's part of the edible food recovery portion of the SB 1383 regulations. So part of it is teaming up with some of those nonprofits or different places that are giving out food so that they're not throwing away the edible food that can actually be consumed. But making that partnership is a big part of what our job will be, to make sure that we make that connection with them, because they don't necessarily know who's in need of the food at this time and what organizations are able to do it. So that will be something that we're doing in addition to the food recovery.
Okay.
Any other comments? Yes, Curtis?
At the beginning of the program, is everybody going to get a brand-new green waste container to start this program?
Probably not.
Those that do not currently have a green waste container will get a green waste container. Those that currently have them, they will continue to have theirs unless there's some type of wear and tear and they need a new one. So everyone won't get it. By 2036, though, everyone will have a brand new one.
But it's incumbent upon each resident to inspect their barrel, their container, to make sure that there aren't any cracks on the bottom so that that liquid wouldn't seep out onto the streets and or their backyards, wherever they store those containers. So if they do have cracks, then can they request those free of charge from Waste Management?
Yes, I believe that's considered normal wear and tear, and you're able to get those changed out if for some reason there is a problem with your existing container.
And just a comment, I know, speaking about shopping centers and to the rear of shopping centers where the trash dumpsters are located, You know, there's restaurants there that dump their trash into these containers that are now going to have to be stored in another enclosed possible locker that might have to be refrigerated to maintain the smell factor and the fly issue, and again, the insects and the rodent issues that are gonna be all over the back of shopping centers if they don't do it correctly. And are we gonna have additional regulations on that? Because I noticed that there's going to be additional costs associated with more than one pickup a day for the trash dumpsters.
There won't necessarily be more regulations, but there will be more outreach and information. So one of the big things is going to be to make sure that we give tips and things that can hopefully help minimize those issues. So in addition to that, if there are other regulations that come, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the regulatory side, I guess, but we will have tips and things to hopefully help people not have as many of those issues. Because I know now even we're already collecting food waste. So the way that it's going to be collected will be different. It won't be with all the rest of the trash. So some of the different issues that are currently had, like during the hotter times in the summer, it's going to still be there. It'll just be a little bit different. I think one of the parts of having it combined with the organics hopefully will minimize some of the smells. Not sure if that's totally true until we do it. But hopefully, if it's not, we will be able to take care of any issues that come up as they happen.
I want you to know that I'm for recycling, absolutely. But I just, again, think this is the state of California shooting from the hip and making these decisions that have not been well thought out prior to making these laws go through. So thank you very much.
Okay, we do have one written request to speak from the audience. I think is it Leanne Eskin something? Okay. You write very fancy. It's hard to read. Is it Leanne?
It's Leanna.
Oh, Leanna, okay.
Yeah, I've been a resident for 35 years here in Chino. And a couple of things that I had to ask you is, have you done any research to these other agencies that are in California to see what their proposal has been done for their communities? Or I don't know what because what I'm hearing, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing commingling grass and food together in a container. And that was one thing I was going to bring up, is that I've had my same containers for about 30 years. Great construction, everything. When they started to crack and my husband couldn't repair them anymore, I called Western Waste and asked for new ones. I got cheaper ones that are already cracked and they're not even a year old. So I know they leak, like you mentioned, they do leak. And my concern is when you miss grass and food, you also get combustible gases and things like that. I'm not an engineer, so my forte is mental health.
This is going to affect our mental health.
Yes, it is. That was my point. Aside from the rates, I noticed there's also, this is not to say a negative thing about Western Waste, because I've commuted a lot. But when I used to come across their drivers, they used to be more friendly, would wave. I noticed there's a reduction in quality of community service with them. One of the things that I had initially wanted to kind of complain about is we're only allowed 3 major pickups in a year, and I was looking at maybe 4. I guess also another thing is the lack of personal contact. When I tried to get a large bulk pickup, I actually couldn't get a person on the line, and that seems to be a repetitive thing, not just with Western Waste, but in a lot of areas of businesses, is everything is done through text or email or this, that, and the other, and things kind of don't get acknowledged or responded to. And I guess what I was going to say is reduction in human interaction. Also, I have concerns about, I realize that this money is going back to enable them or assist them in meeting the goals of the state. But I also look at the quality of service that they've been providing. Like I said, I've been here for 35 years. I don't think I'm going to go anywhere. I think my kids are going to inherit the house, and they'll be standing up here too. And then just on a side note, you probably don't remember Karen, but you came out to my house a long time ago, and I have a 39-year-old who remembers you, okay? Because he was a problem child, and I'll just leave it at that.
Hopefully it was a good memory, I'm sorry.
It was a good memory.
Okay,
He hopped over the
excellent.
back fence and ran into you when you were still running patrol. So if that kind of dated you, you were only 17 at the
Yes,
time.
ma'am,
Okay.
I was. My hair to prove it. Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
That's the only written request I have to speak. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on item number 9? Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, esteemed city council members, I'm a longtime member of the Chino community. My name is Jerry Fellows. I live at 5162 Washington Avenue, and I don't have any problem with the increase in the rate hikes. I just have 3 simple questions to ask. What would be the percentage of the service increase that will go to infrastructure improvement? What would be the increase in the percentage of the increase that would go to administrative costs? And third, what would be the increase in the salary directly to the collectors of the trash and refuse that we put out? Thank you.
Oh, gosh, Jerry, I don't think we have that information. We would have to ask for that from the agencies that are passing this fee through and get back to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Are there any other audience members that would like to address the council on item number 9? Okay, seeing none, before I close the public hearing, I would like to ask Glenda, would you please come up and explain a little bit about how your company intends to handle this new mixture?
Well, first of all, good evening, Mayor and City Council members and members of the audience. I think Jocelyn did a great job in presenting the information as, bad news for some of us to hear it, but it is the right state regulations. I've, been here before. We are at a point where the city, like all municipalities in the state of California, have to have an organics program implemented. The goal for the program is, like Jocelyn said, to divert organic waste from the landfills and making sure that we have reduced greenhouse gases. What we are proposing in order to keep costs down is to utilize the existing green waste cart to be utilized to mix the organics waste. So typically, right now, we refer to the green waste cart as a green waste. So once we implement the program, it will be referred to as an organics cart. And yes, there are concerns about, flies and things like that, but we are working with the city in making sure that we provide educational material to help mitigate those concerns. Is it going to go away? No, but like Jocelyn said, we already are throwing away that material. It's just we're changing the habit. And organics is something new. Recycling has been around for a while, and I could tell you that there's people still who don't do it right. So our goal is to provide a intense educational campaign so that residents are aware of how to do it, answer any of their questions at, like Jocelyn said, at the summer movie nights events, make ourselves available so that we can answer those questions, because it is a new program and it is something that not just is unique to Chino, it's every city. And to answer the residents' question, we service Chino Hills, Chino, Eastville, and all the cities. I mean, the program is the same, and it's been implemented there.
Now, Glenda, since it's a mixture of food waste and green waste, where are you actually going to take this material?
So that's one of the things about this regulation is that it has to go to a fully permitted facility. Right. And so we will be collecting it and taking it to our South Valley facility that is in Tulare, where it will be
It's going to go all the way up to Tulare?
Yes, because the concentration of the customers who buy compost at that volume is up there. You know what I mean? We can't bring all that here. What will we do with it? It'll just stack up. So the customer base that needs the material is up there. We are researching, obviously, and making sure that there are other alternatives here locally, but at this point in time, that is where we would be taking it.
So a lot of that cost escalation obviously is transporting that material up to Tulare.
It's the processing, transportation, it's all encompassed in one, yeah.
Wow, okay. Any questions? Yes, Karen?
Glenda, are there other cities that have already implemented the compost handling?
Yes, City of Chino Hills has implemented it, and the City of Eastville, City of Norco, I believe Ontario as well, and Pomona is also, yeah. So
How's it?
a lot of the
What's the
cities that are
feedback on those cities that have already implemented it?
The same thing. I mean, it's a new program. People are not happy about it. They understand that it is a state mandate and that with anything new that's being implemented, there's an increase in cost. But it's been conservatively accepted. We do have some people that are really excited that it's finally here, and then you have some people that have some reservations. But the program has been running pretty successfully.
Okay.
We do have some people who actually utilize the little cart, the bucket that Jocelyn gave out, and actually put it out to the curb. So I do ask that you do not put it out to the curb because we will not be servicing it. So just to clarify that.
What about the questions with restaurants that Kurt brought up? What are you experiencing in these other communities with the restaurants?
So the commercial program for organics has been implemented since 2016, so it's not something new to businesses. There is still the learning curve. I mean, one of the challenges with, especially with fast food restaurants, is the turnaround in staff. And so just educating people on making sure they understand how the program works and what goes where, that is basically the way we've been able to target those issues. But it has been implemented at their level for quite some time already.
Interesting. Okay. Any other questions for Glenda?
Yes, Mayor. Glenda, could you help the resident with the questions that was proposed? If you would work with our staff to help the gentleman that had some of those questions if it's available, and then I know you're our local representative from Waste Management. Speak to our other resident just about some of the customer service feedback. We know that we know that you as a representative take pride in the services that you do provide. And then lastly, I know you talked about the implementation in other cities, but do other cities also charge? I mean, the fee that we are charging, or is that something different? Are you familiar with what other cities are charging for the implementation fee? Are we in line with what other cities are charging?
It depends, obviously, where people take their stuff, but the cost, we try to work really closely with the city and making sure that we minimize the cost, and it is in line. Some cities actually have it substantially higher. So
with the administration fee that we're charging on the other side?
That I don't necessarily, I'm not familiar with that, yeah.
Okay.
Kurt?
I would just like to make a comment that, to the young lady that came up originally with your questions regarding waste management and their service. I would encourage you to give them another try. The customer service that I have received has been outstanding. Any issues that have gone on with their drivers or trucks, anything that is going on, I would request that you call Waste Management. Give them another shot because I don't know if something's changed in the last couple of years with their service, but I've seen a tremendous increase.
I understand, but when I called and asked for a big pickup, I actually got someone from out of the state of California.
Okay.
And it took them 4 weeks to pick up something.
I would encourage you to try them again. Thank
I'll
you.
definitely provide my information and follow up on that.
Okay, we know that, and then just
Thank you very much.
in addition to that, just some of the services that you do provide to us in the form of street sweeping and alley rehabilitation, Glenda is appreciated. But thank you to the resident too for
Yeah,
bringing that
thank
to our
you.
attention, because customer service feedback is the only way that we can improve things. So,
Glenda, thank
Agree.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other input from the audience, oh, yes, sir, please come up. No, you have to come up here so we can hear you, please.
Good evening. My name is Wilson Hernandez, and I didn't hear the count on the tally, so I don't know if it
It will be
makes-
coming up next.
Okay, because I didn't bring a written response. Is it too late to submit a written response?
No, you can do it.
You could do so as late as today.
Okay, and that's my concern. I came here because of the proposed rates increases, and you mentioned like a 4% rate. When I look at this at just the consumer trash service rates, it's going up. It's going up 18% July 1st, and in 4 years, it goes up 48%. So that's why I push back against these natural increases, which amount to quite a lot. If you just say nothing and just go along with it, it's going to go up to 50% in 4 years. So that's my input there. But yeah, I'll be happy to write something out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other input from the audience? Okay, seeing none, then we will close the public hearing and direct the, let's see, well, we have one more. Yes, Chris, you do?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up one more thing, and this is probably a question for our city attorney.
Let me reopen the public hearing then. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Looking at specifically at least the IEUA rates, we can almost guess that these rates are going to continue to just rise and rise and rise as as time progresses. And I'm not sure if it's worth considering as a council or as a city, just getting into the discussion at what point would it be beneficial to the city and to our residents to, possibly get into the business of treating our own recycled water. And I just wanted to kind of get your feedback. Is that possible? Is that something the city would be able to do? Obviously, looking into the future and planning for the future. And again, helping with these rates, for our residents.
Yes, thank you. Happy to respond, Mayor. As I have previously reported to the council, we are in the midst of negotiations with IEUA to extend what was a 50-year-long agreement that expired last year, and so the existing agreement that we contend the terms still apply does have provisions that actually speak to any contract agency, including Chino, having the opportunity and the right to create its own wastewater treatment plant infrastructure. It does have a process where we have to notify IEUA, the Inland Empire Utilities Authority, and there's somewhat of a process to have, there's an evaluation, I should say, but ultimately that's a right the contract agencies have.
Thank you. And it was brought up once before, regarding, I think the term was used, just, passing the bill over to, in this case, IEUA, and, letting them bill our residents directly. That way, the city of Chino is not passed through city. What are the steps and procedures to get to that point?
So currently, IEUA simply adopts the rates, and we, as the city of Chino and every other contract agency, simply has to accept them and do what we're doing this evening. There has been some discussion about whether that makes sense and whether IEUA should just simply take over the direct billing of client accounts, but that mechanism is not in place. I don't really know historically why Chino kept the responsibilities to bill the customers if it's really an IEUA service. But obviously, if the city is interested, that's something I could raise as part of the negotiations of the contract.
We have spoken about that a couple of times, especially if we can't get to a successful renegotiation of that contract. We actually have little to say about the rates that they charge.
Right.
And sitting in those meetings, as you've been experiencing, it's very difficult to get information, especially straight information that's easy to understand. So I think if it gets to the point where negotiations fail and we don't have a regional contract, I think that's something that should be brought to this council for a possibility.
The other thing, Mayor, too, I just want to clarify with the city manager. So the fee, I don't have any control, like the mayor was saying, because of the pay-through issue. And I think Jocelyn did a great job, right? I mean, these are the fees that are being asked for the service providers. What we do have control of is our fees, right, our costs. And in this amount, is it $3.10 per account? So we have about 20,000 accounts in the city of Chino per account holder per month that we're going to be collecting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's about $62,000 a month, if that's correct, and about $740,000 a year. Is that what we think it's going to cost to manage all this? I mean, when you look at that, and when the amount that adds up, I'm trying to get my mind around how we're collecting that and what that money is going to be dedicated to.
In addition to collecting it for the specific programs, I know that we'll also have an amount of it that's going to go into a reserve so that as we're billed, we'll have enough money to basically pay those bills. Because we don't know how much tonnage is going to be collected with this new program, we want to make sure that we have enough money to pay that bill once it's collected. We're doing it based on the tonnage that was collected previously, but we don't know what those actual numbers are going to be. So we can either have a shortfall or we can have a cushion, I guess is the word I'm thinking of, to make sure that those bills will get paid.
Okay. All I ask is of our staff, since that is the cost, the figure here that we have control of, that we monitor that and make sure that revenue source, it's not a revenue source, but that source to pay for those figures does not become disproportionately balanced, that it maintains some equality to our residents in the billing cycle as we move forward with this.
Okay, thank you, yes. And I
Thank you,
think that's one of the big parts of it is that it can be adjusted. And I believe, like, even though we're going to collect it starting at that area.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it could be adjusted downward. But if it came down to the fact that we're actually collecting more than what we projected, we wouldn't be able to increase. So there would be a shortfall. We wouldn't be able to.
I understand. I'm just saying that's the one cost in this whole process that we seem to have control over. I would just like staff to make sure that we manage that the right way for our residents.
Let's request that yearly we get an accounting of the amount that has been collected and how it's been spent.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then the council can make a decision on if we can adjust the rates down if it looks like we've overestimated. But like Jocelyn says, if we underestimate, we'd have to go back to a Prop 218 procedure in order to raise it to cover actual costs.
I agree with that, Mayor. I think that since this is something new, I think at least for the first couple of years while we're evaluating, I think that's a fair.
Just monitor it.
Yep.
Monitor it, because it is going to take an incredible amount of staff time. And we don't exactly know what. I know in reviewing the sheet, there is a cost for trading in bins. If you have a damaged bin, it doesn't say that they're going to replace them free. There is a cost.
Yeah,
it's $23.55.
It's broken out, pretty succinctly.
To exchange carts. And I know our green waste, I know one of our two is cracked. So we're going to have to replace at least one.
Yeah, so for residential customers, there is no charge if you're replacing a damaged or a broken cart, so there is no fee associated to that.
Why is it on the chart then?
I don't know what she's looking at.
I'm not sure where you're looking at. You may be looking at the commercial
Page 2
cost.
of Resolution 2023-028.
Yeah, it says.
It says exchange of carts, 2355.
Exchange of carts, or it's by the burn carts.
So we do have instances where a cart might, for example, if it gets damaged because someone put coals in and it's not necessarily normal wear and tear, there is a cost associated to replace that for, the incident that it damaged it. But for normal wear and tear, there is no cost associated.
Oh, okay. Because ours, like Leanna said, ours is probably about 30 years old.
And one of the, I do know that the resident mentioned, that the newer carts, as a hauler, we are also asked to utilize, recycled plastic to create our carts. And so that's why the carts are not of the same integrity as they used to be, because we do have to have those carts made by recycled material.
Built-in obsolescence, right?
And also in addition to that, by implementing it gradually until the deadline, we are saving costs and not having to purchase new ones and have customers, incur those costs.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Glenda.
Real quick, Mayor, if I can just say, to that point, I could attest, I had a resident who reached out, wear and tear on their cards. There was quite a few of them. There was about 4 of them or something like that. It was like an apartment building, and I reached out to Glenda, and Glenda made contact with them, and they were extremely happy about their brand new colored cards. So that's absolutely true.
Okay.
Mayor, mine went missing one day. I thought somebody had picked it up, and occasionally, I guess the truck eats it, yeah.
Oh,
So I went
really?
back on my camera, I'm like, well, which one of my neighbors, why would they want my green waste can? So I go back on my camera, and when the hand picked it up, it threw the whole trash can in there.
Oh, my gosh.
Into the green waste. So if your can goes missing, the trash truck does eat them occasionally.
So did they automatically
They brought
bring
one
you
back
another
out.
one?
Yeah.
Never heard of that before. Okay, now, are we finally going to close public hearing? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing, and I'd like to, let's see, did the gentleman, he's writing something right now. Can you, I'm assuming it's a protest. Okay. So I'll ask the city clerk to tabulate and report the total number of written protests received.
Thank you, Mayor. Upon conclusion of the public hearing, the total of 11 written protests were received in response to the notice.
Okay, council have any further?
I apologize, Mayor, 12 with the
12
addition.
with this, okay. Council have any other further comments? No? I'd also like to report that Councilman Lucio was called away due to a family emergency, so he had to leave our meeting this evening. So keep his family in your thoughts and prayers, please. Okay, then I would like a motion and a second, please, for item number 9.
And just for clarification, the motion will also include the council discussion on an annual report of the expenditure of that $3 and change per month fee. I recognize and spoke with your city manager that correlates with your annual budget, so perhaps that could be incorporated into
Okay.
that process. But just to clarify that the motion includes that directive.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, then I would entertain a motion and a second, please.
Mayor, can we do a voice vote for this one?
A voice vote? Okay. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock,
I can make-
I'm second.
second from Councilman Flores.
Councilmember Flores,
Yes.
Councilmember Burton,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Comstock,
Yes.
Mayor Yaloa.
Reluctantly, yes. Okay, the item passes 3 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent. Okay, item number 10, conduct Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, hearing. Conduct a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing, adopt resolutions approving the form of associate membership agreement and the issuance of revenue obligations for the benefit of Heights Christian Schools. I'd like to declare the public hearing open and ask for a staff report from Nadine Lowry, our Deputy Director of Finance.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, and members of the public. For the benefit of Heights Christian School, the item before you tonight is a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982. A TEFRA hearing. Heights Christian Schools, a nonprofit corporation, requested the city to conduct a TEFRA hearing and approve a resolution in accordance with Internal Revenue Code Section 147F, authorizing the issuance of tax-exempt obligations by the California Enterprise Development Authority, CEDA, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $36.1 million. Pursuant to Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code, the issuance of the bonds by CEDA must be approved by City Council because it is the applicable representative of the government unit having jurisdiction over interest of where one of the ancillary facilities is located. Approximately $23 million of the obligations will be used to fund Heights Christian School, located at 14670 Ramona Avenue in Chino, serving approximately 175 students, preschool through elementary age. There's no fiscal impact on the city as a result of this action. The city does not bear any responsibility for the tax-exempt status of the interest of the debt service on the obligations or any other matter related to the obligations. The recommendations before you tonight, in addition to the public hearing, include adopt Resolution 2023-032, approving an associate membership in CETA, adopt Resolution 2023-033, approving the issuance of revenue bonds by CETA in the amount not to exceed $36.1 million. Authorize the execution of an associate membership agreement and authorizing the mayor, city manager, city clerk, and other officials and officers of the city to take all actions necessary with respect to the associate membership in CETA. Representatives from Heights Christian School are here tonight should you have any questions. That concludes my report, and I am available to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Nadine. Would anyone like to address the council on this issue? Pardon me?
Is the public hearing open?
Yeah, it's, I declared it open.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm Jessica Shaham. I'm an attorney at Kutek Rock. I'm representing Heights Christian Schools and CETA in this financing. It is a conduit financing through CETA. CETA is a JPA. The city is being asked to join as an associate member so that Heights Christian School can do its financing through CETA. Claude Lamar is here. He can talk to you a little bit about the project and about the school and what its plans are in the city. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have about the process.
Can you explain to the public that the city of Chino is under no obligation, that this is an administrative act that we
That's
need to do to
correct.
help the funding?
Because we're issuing tax-exempt bonds on behalf of Heights Christian Schools, one of the requirements pursuant to the IRS is to hold a local hearing so that residents and community members can hear about it. But it's not an obligation of the city to repay the bonds at all. It's completely an obligation of the school. And as far as the associate membership in CETA, there's no responsibility for the city at all. There's no cost. Any costs associated with this financing for the city, we are getting reimbursed to the city through the issuance of the bonds.
Okay, any questions from council members? Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience like to address the council on this item? Okay, yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Claude Lamar. I'm the president and CEO of Heights Christian Schools. We own and operate 2 campuses in Chino Hills, have been there since the mid-90s. We're actually purchasing a property on Ramona in Chino, and we're going to be establishing a school there. And so what we're doing is we're asking CETA to issue these bonds in order to do the purchase and also renovate the campus in order to optimize it for elementary school.
Okay.
So we're happy to join Chino.
Well, we're a great community. I'm just a little biased. Karen?
Sir, can you just let the public know, I know it's in the report, but where the campus is, you intend to locate the campus?
14670 Ramona. It's a 20-acre campus. It's has been Inland Hills Church. It's bordered by the Chino Creek and Little Chino Creek and then the expressway on the backside.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other input from the audience? Questions from council or comments?
Just a comment. I just want to say thank you for the work you guys are doing over there and guiding our young men and women in this great country that we live in. And good job.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion and a second, please.
I believe we need to close the public hearing.
Oh, sorry. Okay, we will close the public hearing and then ask for a motion and a second. Motion from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, second from Councilman Burton. Item passes 4 yes with 1 absent. Item number 11, Formation of Community Facilities District 2023-1. This is to conduct a public hearing regarding the formation of this CFD in the preserve. I'd like to declare the public hearing open and ask for a staff report again from Nadine Lowry, our Director of Finance, Deputy Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening once again, Honorable Mayor, Council, and members of the public. In April, the City Council adopted Resolution 2023-023 declaring the City of Chino's intent to establish CFD 2023-1 located in the preserve. The establishment of this CFD will allow the city to levy a facilities tax and service tax. These taxes will be used to pay for the required infrastructure and public services within this area. Tonight's actions are to adopt the required resolutions for formation, call for a public election, and immediately hold the special election, tally the election results, and then approve the introduction of the ordinance to levy special taxes within the CFD. It is recommended that the City Council adopt the proceedings as outlined by the mayor this evening. That concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Nadine. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, turn it over to council comments. Are there any comments? Okay, then I would entertain a motion in a second, please. Motion from Councilman Flores, second from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock. Item passes unanimously. Now, the resolution was just adopted, calls for a special election to approve the formation of the CFD number 2023-1. Natalie, would you please open the ballots? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. All ballots have been cast in connection with the election to form CFD number 2023-1, and the election has now been closed. The results of the election were unanimous, 12 votes in favor of the proposition.
Okay, having heard the statement of the city clerk, I will now entertain a motion in a second to adopt Resolution 2023-031, certifying the results of the election, along with the introduction of ordinance number 2023-013, authorizing the levy of the special tax and the bonded indebtedness within the district. There's a motion from Councilman Burton, second from Councilman Flores, and I'd like to ask the attorney to read by number and title only.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The City Council is considering the adoption of ordinance number 2023-013, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Chino acting in its capacity as the legislative body of Community Facilities District number 2023-1, Sage Cedar of the City of Chino, authorizing the levy of special taxes within the district, and that is being read by title only and waiving further reading. Thank you.
Okay, and the item did pass 4 yes with 1 absent. Item number 12, introduction of ordinance number 2023-11, amended and restated preserve development agreement. This is the introduction of ordinance number 2023-11, approving the amended and restated preserve development agreement by and between the City of Chino and the Chino Preserve Development Corporation, etc., and approving the certificate of development agreement compliance. I'd like to declare the public hearing open and ask for a staff report from our city attorney, Mr. Fred Galante.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and all of those in attendance. Before you is what has culminated from actually several years of negotiations with the 3 companies that are commonly referred to as the Lewis Companies: Chino Holding Company, Chino Development Corporation, and the Chino Preserve Development Corporation. I'll refer to them as Lewis. Lewis entered into a development agreement in 2004 with the city to coordinate the development of property in the preserve and within the preserve specific plan. The development agreement was then amended in 2008, 2014, and again in 2016. The city and Lewis representatives have been negotiating an extension of the term of the agreement to allow Lewis to complete the actions required under the agreement. As part of the process, we prepare the proposed amended and restated agreement to replace the original agreement as well as all the various terms so that it would appear in one place for ease of reference. It also updates several areas to reflect the current state of development and outstanding improvements required to be performed by Lewis. The amended development agreement ensures responsible long-range planning and fiscal stability by addressing and further clarifying Lewis's fee reimbursement, development and payment, and infrastructure and park obligations. It also extends the term of the development agreement by 10 years until July 1st, 2034, which was the original application sought by Lewis. In exchange for that extension, the city will receive several areas of benefits. The staff report outlines them all in detail, but I would like to highlight a few. First of all, there's no fee lock. Typical of development agreements, developers ask for some certainty in the amount of fees that they are expected to pay. In this agreement, that is not a component of the agreement. So as your development and processing fees go up and change, Lewis will pay the applicable amounts. The services CFDs. So the original development agreement did not impose any inflationary escalator, such as CPI, on the city's services CFD. So that those fees go to various services that the city provides within the development area in the preserve. The amended development agreement now requires all single-family homes built after the approval to have this escalator, so the amount doesn't become stale over time and increases with CPI. Additional municipal services impact payments. The amendment clarifies the amount payable by the Lewis if it develops residential units in excess of 7,000, and that amount will be $1,343 per residential unit and $5,369 per acre of non-residential units. The new provision now ties an increase of those amounts to CPI, whereas the original agreement used a version which tends to trend lower. So
I have a question on that before you leave it. The comment that if they develop residential units in excess of 7,000, was the 7,000 number part of the original agreement? That was their limitation?
It was the amount that they were required to build, but I believe the limitation is 8,000 and change, 8,129, yes.
Is the 8129 part of the master plan?
I understand it is part of that.
Okay, so they know they are going to be paying higher amount of that quantity over 7,000.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I know there are several Lewis representatives here, so to the extent they have any further clarification on that, I'm sure they have more direct knowledge. The agreement also addresses, and this is frankly one area that was probably the most difficult and time-consuming to really work through, and I will say Lewis representatives were gracious and good to work with, but related to public facilities. So all of those improvements that Lewis is committed to provide under the original agreement, there had been some areas of confusion, and now there is clarity as to the size of the community facilities that Lewis is obligated to construct and deliver and provide to the city, which totals 42,395 square feet of facility. And that can be configured in the city's discretion between either a community center, a library space, depending on the city's needs. When combined with the existing facilities that Lewis has constructed, Lewis will have delivered over 54,781 square feet of community centers to the preserve. It also establishes what we believe is an equitable calculation of development impact fee credits that Lewis will receive for dedicating land and construction costs. And one of the issues was that the original agreement required that they dedicate the land to allow for the construction of these community facilities, but it was not made clear how you set and establish that land value for which Lewis would receive credits. The negotiations culminated to having Lewis pay $3,911,000 and change, which is based on an average of land values that applied when it secured past building permits, as well as the estimated building permits that they remained to secure. So that is not based on today's value or any future value when the land is actually dedicated to the city. The agreement also gives the city full discretion on the timing of commencement of construction of the community facilities. As to public parks, there is now language that clarifies how many acres of park space Lewis has constructed and remains obligated to construct and dedicate to the city. It provides a coordinated plan to build over 53 acres of public parks in the preserve and provide significant additional park fee funds for preserved parks. The public parks constructed by Lewis will be maintained by the PMMC, the Preserve Master Maintenance Corporation, so that will not be at city expense. As to private open space, there was also some discussion, and now the agreement clarifies that the private open space that Lewis develops for its various communities does not entitle Lewis to full reimbursement for costs to actually construct those open space facilities. Instead, the agreement explains that Lewis is entitled to receive a 50% credit for just the dedication of the land, not the construction component. And that land has to qualify under the city's ordinance as amenable for active recreational space. The credit will reduce Lewis's total acreage requirement to build and dedicate public parks. Lewis is also committing an extra $1 million to the Block 9 park, and that's above the city's park fee construction cost estimates to make it the community's focal point. Additionally, Lewis will prioritize development of lower density development. It is committed to develop a minimum of 23 acres of estate residential zone property and prioritize development of low residential within the Block 3 area. Lewis will also pay the city $50,000 within 30 days of the effective date of the agreement for monument signs for the two existing parks, the Garden Park and Forest Park, and all the future parks will have monument signs included. So the amended agreement does not change the scope or the intent of the development agreement as far as its consistency with the city's general and preserve specific plans. And that was the finding that on May 17th, the Planning Commission made, and its task was to review the agreement for consistency with those plans, and by a vote of 7-0, the Planning Commission concurred that it is consistent with that general plan and the preserve specific plan and recommended approval of the development agreement. Finally, the agreement also addresses the annual certification requirement that I think this council has seen as a separate action. This is now incorporated in this agreement for this year, certifying that Lewis is in fact in compliance with the current agreement. And with that, the recommendation is for the council to conduct the public hearing, approve the introduction of ordinance 2023-11, which I'll just read now, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Chino, California, approving the amended and restated Preserve Development Agreement by and between the City of Chino and the Chino Preserve Development Corporation, et cetera, related to the development of approximately 1,157 acres of real property in the preserve within the City of Chino, contract number 2004-073. and find the approval exempt from CEQA as there is no physical changes contemplated beyond what was analyzed under the original environmental impact report, and also approve the certificate of development agreement compliance. And the one added item is we'd like also authorization to the city manager to execute all documents as needed to implement the actions. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Fred, you skipped over section 3.12, which dealt with affordable housing. And I know Mayor Pro Tem Comstock had a question about that.
Certainly.
And it reads, owners have provided 250 family affordable units and paid $7 million into the city's affordable housing fund and paid an additional $22.2 million in lieu of providing 250 senior affordable dwelling units. Karen, do you want to ask him your question?
Yes, Mayor, I understand that Lewis has provided an offset for that, but what does that do to that affordable housing number? Do we relocate it to another location? Will it be built at a different time? I mean, particularly, there's a big demand for affordable senior housing, so how does that play out for us in the future?
I understand the obligation will just simply be addressed at other locations within the city. As far as a particular location or the mechanics of that, I'm not certain.
So we're collecting the money. We're collecting $2.2 million for senior affordable. What if a developer never comes forward and wants to build senior affordable? Does that money just sit there? Because we don't build homes.
It would either be just as a supplement to a development that has a gap, a financing gap. So often there are lower income developers that seek just that additional amount of money to fill a financing gap.
So maybe I
Certainly
ask City Manager Reich, how do we track that? How do we ensure that we're going to provide those 250 senior affordable dwelling units supplemented with the 2.2 million?
So that would, so it's the 7 million plus. And so we would use that towards a project like the bridge, where we financially contributed to that so that they could build it. So as a project comes in the future, especially with our overlay, we'll look at that and see if we can use that funding to help supplement a project.
So somehow you earmark that, well, it says 250 family affordable and then 250 senior affordable, so that's 500 units. So 500 units for 9.2 million. So somehow you have a mechanism to track the money and then units being built to make sure we get those 500 units?
That would be, and our housing funding as well.
So we really don't have a plan right now on how to track that or attract developers or anything?
Well, the other opportunity, I don't know if this is necessarily palatable to the council, but this could be an issue to be considered in the future, is you could partner with other jurisdictions to develop that low-income housing. There are, for example, neighboring jurisdictions that may have a pool of money that just in and of itself alone isn't sufficient, but if you pool it with these funds, could provide the full financial gap, the finances needed to fill any gap that a developer has.
But if it isn't built within our community, then it isn't going to meet our RENA numbers. So say Montclair needs some supplemental money to build affordable units, that isn't going to do us any good.
No, the theory is you could partner with other cities that just have an excess of funds to develop the housing. You do get some of the credit, but you're right, it's not the full RENA allocation.
I would like to see,
Pardon?
I would like to see some kind of report on how we're going to track that and make sure that doesn't slip through a crack. I mean, $9.2 million is a lot of money, but I don't know if it's enough to build 500 units. And we do need senior units, so, you know, I'm a little concerned. We settled for an amount of money, which I appreciate, but we need to make sure that it's spent where it needs to be spent.
Understood. That actually was one term I didn't highlight because it hadn't changed in this particular version of the agreement. but certainly we understand the council's concerns.
Okay. Any questions? Chris, do you have any questions? I'll open it to the public in just a minute.
No questions right now, Mayor.
Karen, do you have any questions?
The acreage for the housing, has that been determined? I know we talked about that in the planning commission. Has it been determined how large those lots are? I know they've dedicated it. Is that a part of this, or how is that going to be determined?
The acreage for the affordable housing or the?
No, the estate.
The
Estate housing. So the specific plan essentially has a range that authorizes, I believe it's as low as 12,000 and change square feet. So it comes out to about a third of an acre and plus all the dedications and setbacks.
So I spoke to the city manager about that during my one-on-one this week. Is it correct that they're agreeing to build some of that sooner rather than later? How is that happening, Dr. Wright?
Yeah, we don't have a plan, but they have agreed to move to some of the lower density properties, not the estate residential, but the ones to the west of that, the more 4.5.
4.5?
Right.
Lastly, I know that this clause is in a lot of our DAs, but being new to the council, I just would like just more of a little bit of a heads up from staff about the annual audits that are due on that. I think that's just for my information, maybe not the rest of the council. This is something I would like to see. I don't know how, I've probably seen them in the past and maybe not even understood what I'm reading since I'm new. I would just like to see that more routinely and making sure that we're reporting out how we're making progress on the DA for me. And just want to thank staff. There's obviously some things we're still working through, in this process, like this housing or when we're going to start construction on that estate. But I do think that this DA, in reading it, it's a lot more specific on a lot of things. I think when we entered into the DA with Lewis 20 years ago, it was difficult really for us to, quite frankly, imagine all that would have to come to fruition in order to build this community in our city now that is now known as the Preserve in Chino. And I like that it has more specifics about construction on our community facilities, our parks, certain dedications that way I think are going to benefit our employees, right, while we're moving through this process, but also more importantly benefit the residents in that community to make sure that we deliver on a lot of things that we still need to construct down there. So I just want to thank Lewis, and I want to thank our staff, and I want to thank you, Fred, and the city manager for working through this.
My pleasure. And just for the benefit of the question you asked on the certificate of compliance is a very good question. And you're right, every development agreement, at least the ones I've done, has an annual review requirement. And what your city staff do when they receive the request for that annual report is to identify whether staff is aware of any areas of default. So is Lewis, for example, failing to address some of the requirements within the timeline of that particular year's report? There are some agreements that are very specific as to each date. Deliverables have to occur within certain periods of time. Your original agreement actually had a requirement that a certain number of housing units were supposed to be developed. And you may remember there was a little bit of discussion and an issue because during the Great Recession, it was hard to enforce that against any developer, let alone Lewis having to do about 7,000 units. So there was an understanding that was an issue not to be enforced as a default. And that is one of the reasons for the 10-year extension. But that's generally what your staff will look at. Are they aware of any areas of default by the developer? And if not, then they recommend that the council issue the certificate of compliance. And I know to the extent that Lewis may want to sell any parcels or tracts to another specific developer, that is something they'll want to see before as one of their due diligence items.
Thank you for, I appreciate that. I understand that. I look at the audit, especially with a DA that's this long, as almost like a progress report to us and the community. And I just, like I said, I don't know that I've seen him as routinely or as frequently as I would like, or not just with, this, but with other development agreements that we have. And I think that's fair to share with not just the council, but also the community. I mean, if we have periods of time where we're going to have to provide extension because of recessions or different things, we can explain those things. But I think that is a service as a progress report to how we're progressing on those DAs with developers. So that's my only wish in seeing it and providing it to the community.
Understood, thank you.
Kurt?
I just wanted to thank you for doing all the work on this. I know how intensive it is, and a lot of things have gone into it. So thank you to our staff for putting it together, and really too to Lewis, the reps from Lewis, Pat Loy and Aaron O'Leary. They're out in the audience. I've been very, very open and accommodating, and being new on the council, I appreciate the time they've given me to explain things in reference to this specific plan on top of what our staff has already done. So I appreciate the work, so thank you.
Okay, and in the spirit of providing something for everyone in true balanced growth, the estate residential is extremely important to me in particular. I know that they can build them as low as a third of an acre, but I'm certainly hoping, because the intent was half acre, and the reason being so that there would be animal keeping if people wanted. Not that they all want to or even any of them do, but there's a lifestyle that's associated with a half-acre lot. A lot of them, I know in our neighborhood, there's tennis courts, there's swimming pools, there's mini baseball diamonds. I mean, there are people out there that don't want to live in stack and pack. And again, in the spirit of a balanced growth and a balanced community, I think it's extremely important that we hang on to that and fight for it. Obviously, the developer makes more money the more houses they can build, but I have a desire to meet the needs of all of our community, not just certain pieces of it. And there are people who are looking for larger space and alternatives when it comes to, living space. So as much as, or as many as those lots can be hung on to that are half acre, I would appreciate it. And I know sometimes you can configure things in clusters where you have a little bit of a variety instead of just a postage stamp. Everything meets the same size. So I would encourage, I know Pat's looking at me over the rim of his glasses. I would encourage Lewis to sharpen their pencils. And I talked to Randall the other day, and he assured me that they're going to hang on to those estate residential. And I'm going to hang on to the animal keeping just as hard as you guys are hanging on to what you're hanging on to. So whether it gives people an option whether they want to use it or not. So that's one of the real important things to me in particular.
I also, Mayor, I want to echo that the balance issue in the city, that's huge. This city will have something for everyone. The stack and pack issue, it doesn't have to be that way everywhere you go. And right here in Chino, we have the opportunities to go out and buy whatever size lot that you want. And I'm of the opinion that if you buy it, or if you build it, they're going to come and they're going to buy it. These estate lots, as we're calling them, they're a little bit larger. I think that they will sell. I honestly think that people are going to come into the city. We're already a boom town. It's just going to get that much better. So, Mayor, I agree with you. The balance is extremely important, and it will always be there. So thank you.
You're welcome. Now, is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up to the lectern and address the council? Ma'am, Leanne, or Pat, do you want to talk first?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, member of the council. I'm Pat Loy with Lewis Management Corp., representing the owners under the DA, and we're very pleased to bring this to you tonight. It's been years of effort, so I do want to thank, starting with Linda, the city manager, the whole team, I believe this document's probably touched every department in the city. And as a few of the council members said, that the clarification of some things that we know a lot more than we did 20 years ago. So a lot of the detail that went into this, we're appreciative of all the staff and the work that went into that. So thank you. I can maybe add some clarity to some of the questions that were raised earlier.
Okay.
So I'd like to do that. The first question about the fiscal impact and the units above 7,000. Initially, we paid $7 million up front, and starting out, the fiscal fee was $1,000 a lot. So we prepaid in the first 2 years $7 million. So that set the 7,000 units. So we know we have to pay more for the remaining units at whatever the going rate is at the time. There was a question about affordable. On the affordable units, we've already delivered 250 family affordable units. That's the Meadow Square apartment that's on Pine Avenue. So that one's done. That had low, very low, and moderate range of housing, so we did that.
So Pat, you built the 250 family affordable, but also gave us $7 million?
Correct. $7 million up front, plus the 250 units with low, very low. The seniors housing project was proposed 250. It was 250 moderate rate units. So I think when we talked to the city, it was getting the in lieu payment of $2.2 million additional that they felt they could probably do a better project or get more bang for the buck on affordable. Because that, and I think as the city attorney reported that there's money, I remember asking Nick Lagoria about this, there's $9.2 million, I think, sitting in an affordable fund that could be devoted to affordable projects in Chino to help fund and further those goals.
So the whole 9.2 could be used for the 250 senior affordable?
Or other projects, correct.
Okay.
Correct. Then let's see, there was a question, Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, about the annual audits and reports. Yes, we take that seriously. The reason you haven't seen them is we've been working on this DA amendment for the last 3 years. And part of that was the direction of council to amend the agreement to bring it back. But one of the certification reports back in, I think, 2020 was amend certain provisions. Then those provisions, it turned into a much larger scope of amending the whole document. So that's why it took a while to get back to you. But that's very important. Usually it would be this time of year. We'd be submitting a report to staff in May or June, and it would come in front of you for an annual review on the DA. So
Thank you, Pat, that I am correct, because of my term, I haven't seen one, right, since I've been elected, so that would explain it. So Meadow House is your first 250 affordable, that met that criteria for that project?
Yes, that apartment project right there.
Okay.
Yes. And then, Madam Mayor, we know your concern about the large lots, and I know Randall reached out to you, and we know that, and we understand that. And I think as we develop a project on that, we'll be reaching out to get some feedback on those. We're not ready to propose a project right now, but as we do, we will. And we are moving forward with some of the low-density residential lots, the bigger lots. That would be kind of the next phases of the project. So, and
What density do you foresee those being, Pat? The ones you're moving forward?
The ones we're moving forward, I think those are probably in the four, maybe less than 4. The maps are already approved, I think,
I think
those
it's
lots.
regular, what we used to call a
4.5.
regular neighborhood, normal
Pat,
neighborhood.
thank you for doing that. I think that was a little ahead of schedule, but I think it'll give the residents down there just kind of a sigh of relief. I mean, with the shopping center opening and with this newer low-density area that's being built, I think that the folks down in that preserve are really going to see, like I said, that balance that we're really striving to achieve down in that area. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, Pat, thank you.
Thank you.
We're very excited about their shopping center and some of the new developments that's coming that way, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If there's any other questions.
Any other questions for Pat? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Leanna?
Today. Like I said, I've been in this city for 35 years. In my prior life, I have an undergrad and a master's in criminal justice, and my concern is my officers here. They need, the more we increase our population and we become dense and we use high-density housing, we have law enforcement and fire department that need to respond. Some of these areas, for the fire department, they may need to take a look at how England uses theirs. They have smaller fire trucks in order to maneuver around. They may need more equipment to accommodate that, and we need a response time that is adequate for the community that we do currently have and are planning on expanding. And, excuse me, I haven't gone to a meeting here in a long time. I used to be a regular, but my concern is these guys here. And they represent all of us, because without their support of protecting and serving, I know I'm stealing that from LAPD, but without them protecting and serving us, we can build up the preserve, which was cows when I got here in 1988, to where we have a lot of people. And when we have a disaster down there, that means that might, you're pulling resources from other parts of the city, which means that we kind of leave ourselves open to vulnerability. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But all I'm saying is are we addressing the needs of more law enforcement?
Yes.
They need more equipment?
Yes, we certainly are. I mean, there's a master plan for fire and
these guys, the fire
police.
department needs smaller trucks like they have over in England, so that they can maneuver into these areas where all you can get is a single engine company that is really a lot bigger than what they have in Europe. They still have the same thing, but it's a little bit more compact. A couple of more of those engine companies would probably help these guys out. And even if we have a station sitting out there that maybe is not manned completely, at least that they have resources down there so that they can use them because of OES. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well stated.
I can assure you that our police and our fire have excellent planning going way into the future on what they need to meet all of our needs. And they are, trust me, adequately funded.
No, they need a little bit more, but that's okay.
Thank you.
I'm willing to put my tax dollars on them.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address this item? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow council members. I'm Aaron O'Leary with the Lewis Group of Companies. I just wanted to take a moment and thank Dr. Wright and Mr. Galante for all their hard work and all the staff's time and efforts. I have a little bit more gray hair. Pat has a little less hair since we started this process. But I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to everyone. So thank you.
Aaron, thank you very much, and thank you for spending your time with Councilman Burton, kind of educating him on all of this stuff that's going on. I know he's been a little bit overwhelmed with it. Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. Fred, you already read the ordinance by number and title, so I will ask for a motion and a second, please.
And I just added the request that it also include the authorization to the city manager to sign all the documents. Thank
Yes, you did. There's a motion from Councilman Burton, second from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, and the item passes 4 yes with 1 absent. Next, under new business, item number 13, final acceptance of public improvements, payment reconciliation, and release agreement and development impact fee reimbursement, site approval PL 160719, Scannell Properties number 404 LLC. This item is to accept the public improvements for site approval PL 16-0719 as complete and approve a payment reconciliation and release agreement with Scannell Properties number 404 LLC for equipment tax in the amount, that's weird, of $1 million and county dedications eligible for development impact fee reimbursements as well as all other eligible DIF reimbursements pursuant to construction credit and reimbursement agreement number 2020-223. Our staff report this evening will be from our city attorney, Mr. Fred Galante.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You can be forgiven because there are a lot of steps to this particular action, and we've rolled them up into one, and that's why I have team backing me up, because if you ask questions beyond my area of expertise, I'll be staring at you blankly. So before you is approval of the various items in 2016, the various items as you identified. In 2016, Scannell Properties applied for a general plan amendment, preserves specific plan amendment, master site plan approval, site approval, and special conditional use permit to develop a 74.4 acre parcel at the southwest corner of Flight and Merrill Avenues. The project is a 503,000 square foot Federal Express parcel delivery facility. On June 19, 2019, the Planning Commission recommended the council approve the general plan amendment and specific plan amendment and the related environmental documents. The Planning Commission also approved the master site approval, and special conditional use permit contingent on the legislative approvals being approved by the council, which occurred on September 17, 2019. In consideration for those legislative approvals, Scannell agreed to pay the city $5 million for perimeter and circulation improvements surrounding the Chino Airport, primarily along Merrill Avenue. Additionally, at the public hearing, the representative from Scannell explained that purchases of equipment to be made by FedEx as part of the development was estimated to provide the city with sales tax revenue totaling approximately $1 million. However, it is unclear whether FedEx did not prepare the sales tax documentation correctly, but ultimately the city never received that sales tax payment. The conditions of approval for the project required Scannell to design and construct public improvements, including storm drain, street, water, and sewer improvements along Merrill and Flight Avenues. As part of the approvals, Scannell was also required to acquire easements and right-of-way dedications for various improvements, which Scannell acquired from the county. The public improvements have now been completed and constructed to the satisfaction of the city engineer. The public improvements that are proposed for acceptance include curb and gutter, sidewalk, concrete paving, street lights, parkway landscaping, sewer, storm drain, domestic and recycled water, traffic signal interconnect, signing, striping, traffic controls, and drive approaches. All pedestrian improvements have also been satisfactorily constructed to meet applicable accessibility requirements. Some of the required public improvements or master plan facilities are included in the city's Development Impact Fee program, the DIF program. These public improvements are eligible for DIF credit and reimbursement per Chapter 3.45 of the Chino Municipal Code. Additionally, the city has ascertained that the dedications of the county owned land for various right-of-way improvements related to the project are eligible for DIF reimbursement in the amount of $2,156,925. $2,156,925. And that is consistent with the construction credit and reimbursement agreement that was approved by the council in February 2020. The actual costs approved by the city engineer will be included in the next annual update to the Nexus study, which is tentatively scheduled to occur in the fall of 2023. Additionally, staff deducted the DIF credits issued to the developer over the course of the project from each of the respective DIF category from the validated cost to determine the reimbursement amounts. It should be noted the credits issued to Scannell for the preserved circulation DIF were more than the validated costs, so Scannell will be invoiced for that difference, which it will pay. The approval also includes this payment reconciliation agreement, and to remedy the issue for the $1 million of sales tax receipts for the equipment purchases. That agreement was negotiated, committing Scannell to actually pay the amount, even though the city did not receive those sales tax dollars. Scannell will pay $750,000 of that $1 million within 30 days of the city's payment of the particular diffs that are currently available. Once the balance comprising the sewer diffs are paid, Scannell will pay the remaining $250,000. And that completes the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Fred. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, council comments? No comments, then I would entertain a motion in a second, please. Motion from Councilman Flores. Second from Councilperson Burton. Item passes 4 yes with 1 absent. Item number 14, adopt resolution number 2023-026, amend parking restrictions for street sweeping. This is to adopt the resolution modifying parking restrictions for street sweeping purposes. Staff report this evening is provided by our city traffic engineer, Mr. Dennis Rawls. Dennis?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, for your consideration, is a resolution that amends the parking restrictions which can occur citywide for street sweeping purposes. On December 6, 2022, the City Council previously approved changes to the Chino Municipal Code allowing for parking restrictions to occur citywide for street sweeping purposes. Previously, the code had only allowed parking restrictions to occur in the Preserve and College Park communities. In March of this year, staff was notified by Waste Management that a change to the trash collection schedule was necessary to rebalance trash pickup as Chino continues to grow. Consequently, street sweeping services are also scheduled to be modified to continue to follow the day after trash collection day. Residents were notified these changes via direct mail by Waste Management. The municipal code requires that a resolution be approved by the City Council to change parking restrictions for street sweeping purposes. Attached to tonight's agenda packet and before you on the screen are the proposed, this is the existing, changes to the citywide street sweeping restrictions that coincide with that modified schedule. One more, please. Thank you. The highlighted areas represented in blue are the only areas in the city that are not being modified by the previous schedule. All other areas not in those blue polygons are being modified, whether it's their Friday days are changing from 1st and 3rd to 2nd and 4th, or whether their Friday changed to a Wednesday or whatever has happened. As a reminder to all, signs must be installed prior to enforcement action can occur for parking restrictions for street sweeping purposes. To date, only the College Park and Preserve communities have signs posted, and encompassed in red is the city's next phased citywide plan to implement parking outside of these communities. This is the area of Fern to Cypress, Chino to Edison area. This area allows us to complete the Friday, I believe it's 2nd and 4th Friday, that's included in College Park to occur. City is currently in the process of acquiring those signs now, and once collected, we'll install those. It's my understanding the police department will issue 1 month of warning citations prior to actually fully enforcing parking restrictions in that area. And then after that, we'll continue to spread and phase in citywide parking restrictions. Make sure I got everything here. Okay, and that concludes my report. Staff and I are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, council comments.
I have just one question.
Leanna, you have to come up to the lectern.
I just have one question. I don't know what day mine is. Mine got moved because I'm north of Chino Avenue, but south of Riverside between Mountain and Benson. I don't know what that is. wherever
Can you
that
tell,
is.
Dennis?
Whatever. It's some purple area probably up there. I have no idea. Or
I
lavender.
believe it's, looking at the screen, looks like Tuesday, the second and fourth Tuesday.
Yeah, the only thing I have with all the years I've been here, your street sweeping people are not accurate. They would come on the oddball days and throw everything off, and the car was sitting there when it shouldn't have been, and then the day that you think that they're gonna be sweeping it, because I used to have Friday, they would come on Thursday, well, they would not come on the Thursday, whatever. It just, I didn't know which, and if you look at our utility bill, it doesn't really say when it starts. So it doesn't specifically say on the water bill, whether it's the second and third or the first and third, it just says every other. So whoever we used to have would make it every other, whatever I thought was convenient to them. But
Well, they're working right now to get it scheduled, notify everybody, and will be
yeah,
street
I try and make sure
signs.
everything's off the street, including the trash can, but I'm just saying that it just got really confusing, and when I saw that, it's like, geez, I gotta count my Saturdays now.
Thank you.
And just to help clarify that, so there will be signs posted in every community that we begin parking enforcement for, and those signs will clearly state when the enforcement is able to occur. So it'll say something like second and fourth Fridays of the month, or first and third Tuesdays of the month.
And Dennis, just for clarification, other than the signs, what notifications are we making to the residents in those areas to let them know?
I believe the residents already received notice through the Waste Management's contract that their dates have changed, and I believe, and
They only actually gave, I got an email and it was exactly 3 days.
I'm sorry, we really can't have comments from the audience.
so I'll double check, and maybe I can ask for help with some of the backup I brought on whether or not there was any additional notification that was made. And thanks, Ben.
Public Works Services Manager. So notification was sent, like Dennis said, through Waste Management, notifying the trash and sweeping schedule would change. As far as enforcement notices, I know PD has sent out notices in the preserve noting, right? You sent out,
For the,
sorry.
yeah, no,
Let me
thanks, Ben.
hand it over.
Yeah, before we did any enforcement, we put out signboards and we connected with the residents, and we'll continue to do that. And then we do a month-long warnings where we're out there issuing warning citations to everybody. And as well as our social media, and we got a large response that people were well aware. They all knew we were coming, and so I think our outreach worked well. And we'll continue to, as we incorporate each new area into it, we'll do the same thing.
Right. And just for clarification, Waste Management sent something out via mail to every resident, giving them that information? Is that how that worked, Ben?
Yeah, every resident that was affected by the change got a notice.
Okay, but that was sent through the
Sent through the
US
mail.
mail, correct? Okay, thank you.
And then just to clarify on the resident, the city website does have street sweeping schedule on the website. You can zoom in, the map will zoom into your street so you can see exactly where you're at. And we did just recently posted the trash schedule on the city website. So you know what your trash day is, scheduled sweeping day is.
And before you leave, I know that, you know, we've been doing this down in the College Park and the Preserve for a while now. Dennis, you mentioned we're going to start now going north in the squares that are outlined. Is that correct?
In that red square.
Okay. And we have a schedule set up of when we're going to start taking over the rest of the city, per se? Is that how that works, or how's that going to?
The schedule, well, we started with the College Park area to, to finish off the Fridays, the first, third and fourth Friday. The next one will be probably a Friday, first and third to finish off all of Friday. Then we'll look at the next area in the city that we want to target. It's mainly based off where our complaints are at first. So we're trying to hit the areas where we're getting a lot of street sweeping complaints for cars parking.
Okay,
That's
so
how
it's
we're-
complaint driven.
It's complaint driven. The first one was just finishing off College Park, and then the second one will be to finish Friday. Then we're going to go complaint driven to the areas that we get the most complaints in.
Great, thank you, Ben.
Okay.
So Mayor, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought when we had the workshop on this, one of the things we talked about was that that we can't enforce this ordinance in these entire areas on both sides of the street on the same side of the day. So I thought that was one of the reasons we sent this back to staff, was we said, hey, you're making this almost impossible to accomplish if you're going to take entire areas and say, hey, you can't park anywhere on your street for a mile or two. And we asked staff to come back specifically and say, hey, you're going to have to do it if it's happening 2 times a month on one side of the street one day and another side of the street the other day, because you're making it virtually impossible for some of our residents to park in these areas and for us to conduct the street sweeping. Is that?
We had
Does you guys
discussed
remember
that. We had discussed that.
So-
Especially in the very crowded areas like College Park and the Preserve.
So I don't understand
Downtown.
how it got brought back the same way.
So, and maybe there was some loss in translation. What staff understood the direction was, is as each neighborhood is assessed and reviewed for its potential to cause issues with enforcement, that staff would take a look at how to properly make sure that we were able to accomplish street sweeping in those areas, and that we would take it on a case-by-case basis as we spread throughout the city, so that in locations where there does seem to be ample on-street parking and off-street parking, that we would still perform the street sweeping with really little modification to how it occurs today. And that as we entered into other areas of the city where we do expect that it's going to be harder for residents to, pull their car off the street each time, that staff would then look at logistical ways to accomplish that. So if that was not what the council's wishes were, then I apologize. That was what staff believed the direction was.
No, Dennis, I don't remember that, because I mean, if, like, you just take my neighborhood alone, I have to virtually go park like a half a mile away instead of just doing it, on one side of the street to the other side of the street. I mean, I don't know how that's boding with most people, but I don't understand why we can't do one side of the street one day in these neighborhoods and do the other side of the street in another day to help people out. I mean, to give them, so they can move their car to an acceptable location to allow for the street sweeping. At least that's what I remember. In fact, we even talked about, Chris, with you on to the alleyways, right? I mean, how we can accommodate that. So maybe I'm the only person that doesn't remember it that way.
I remember a bunch of different discussions. We even discussed doing maybe the morning hours, so that they could come back and move their car back into their street in the afternoon, or the afternoon, so they could leave it on the street in the morning and then make sure they met. I'm sure it's complicated, and I'm sure it's not easy, and if we split it, it's gonna be, the street sweeper's gonna have to go out there 4 times a month to sweep 2 times in a neighborhood. It's complicated.
I don't think they have to go there twice, Mayor. I think they just change their route, so they're looping through different neighborhoods in a different way on different days. I don't think they have to double back, because the sweeper is running through different parts of the city every day. I just think they go a different route when it's on one side of the street or the other.
So we did have several discussions with the sweeping company, and there has been a thought too, where, like you said, there's been several ideas placed here but they've never landed on a single idea of how to solve that issue of half a day, every other day. We still could go back to the table and do, instead of the 2 Fridays, 1 Friday, and one side of the street, but the issue with that was a lot more signage. We're gonna have signs everywhere now for residents are gonna have to see sign on every single block to say, hey, this is your side, this is your side. So that's one of the issues that was a concern of all the signage and the cost comparison. I believe in the workshop, we did have a cost comparison of all the signs for doing it that way and the signs for doing it this way. Thank you.
If I could also just interject, and one of the things that we also realized is College Park and the Preserve, those 2 communities, when they were originally built, had the street sweeping. So that's always been a part of those communities. Now, during COVID, when people were forced to be at home, we had stopped enforcement. And so that's why we re-noticed and we re-warned. And many of the communities down there is only parking on one side of the street. The other side of the street is restricted. So in those neighborhoods, it wouldn't work. The other thing that we're committed to with our enforcement is we're following the sweeper. So, for example, if, it says, hey, you can't park there from 8 to 4, but they saw the sweeper come by at 9 in the morning, and they then park there at 10, we're not gonna come back at 3 in the afternoon and write that person a ticket, because we're actually following the sweeper. And that's how our staff has been doing it in the Preserve and College Park. So they'll follow the sweeper, they'll get a few tickets, so they'll fall behind, and then they'll catch back up to where the sweeper is and move around. And so it's been working fairly well, and we're seeing our numbers after the warnings and the citations every time decrease in there. And those are two of probably our most dense areas as well.
Are you getting very many complaints at all?
No, we're not. I mean, we are getting a few, but not a lot. And that was one of our concerns. We'd be overwhelmed with complaints, but certainly I think our outreach has helped with that. And we also are getting a lot of compliments. A lot of people from the community are thanking us for reinstituting this.
Well, we knew people wanted it, Wes. I mean, it was
Right.
one of the requests from the community, but it's perplexing to me how you can not park not just in your neighborhood, but like in an entire residential block. So
Certainly.
how does that, I mean, you're not just talking about like across the street and around the corner. You're talking about, hey, you can't park for
Right.
like 3 miles away.
And that's the challenge, and that's other communities, and that's what they're doing, and that was certainly the concern when this came up. But how to do it logistically is then the challenge. And so I think we'll have to, as we incorporate each neighborhood, that's one of the things we're going to look at, is how best to do it. And we might have to make modifications. But what works well in your neighborhood might not necessarily work well in another neighborhood. And so I think a one size fits all is going to be difficult.
Well, maybe it will take modifications per Karen. Maybe we just wait and see how each neighborhood goes, and if it looks like it's just not working, then we'll have to go back to the drawing board and see how to accommodate that neighborhood. But if they're able to accomplish it, some people may actually have to start using their driveways and garages.
Right, but we also know that there's plenty of places that don't have those available.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's also become more challenging as more people are working from home.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Okay, so my question is, as we go along with implementing this neighborhood, is this going to keep coming back to council? So we get an update as to, how is it going in this neighborhood or in the downtown neighborhood where, as the chief mentioned, a lot of those residents don't have driveways to park in.
I'm sure staff can provide regular updates on how we do it, or even provide a report before we move into the next area, so that council's fully aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it. That's certainly, I'm happy to do that.
And regarding the modification, are the times remaining the same? Are the times being modified?
So the way this resolution tonight is framed is that it allows for a broad time range, so that as we move into area to area, we can stay within this legal range and still accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So whether we end up, doing something in a neighborhood where it requires us to do one side of the street on one day, or in the morning, and then do another side of the street in the afternoon, so long as both of those timeframes are within this timeframe that we're approving tonight or recommending tonight, that's what staff is using as their tool to make sure that we're accomplishing what we believe we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, now last question. Here on 7th Street, for example, if we're gauging what, is this working, and what the plan that's implemented is, I'm looking here, first Thursday and third Thursday, both signs are put up on both sides of the streets, and, a couple months later, we realize this isn't working. We go to re-sign that. I mean, what are we doing with those signs that aren't being used anymore?
So like you're saying, like if we post signs, we later find out we want to change how we do it, what do we do with those old signs? I don't know if we recycle them or if we're able to resurface them. I'm not sure. or whether or not we give them back to the vendor, if, Ben might have a better.
So on the old signs that don't work, we can do an onlay sticker to change the wording. We will try to save as much as we can, and that's why we don't want to put a lot of signs out at first and over inundate a neighborhood with a lot of signs, because it'll be a lot of waste. So we're going with the minimal sign entry points and try and figure this out as we go.
But Ben, I don't understand the sign issue. If you're doing it to the entrance of an area, I mean, it's kind of like when you go into a shopping center and there's those notices put on there. If you're going into a neighborhood, don't you just put on the sign, subject to street sweeping, first and second Friday, north side or east side? Can't the sign just specify the sides of the street versus having to put two signs?
Well, as you make a turn on the street, it's gonna have to, if we're doing one day versus the other, it'll have to specify in order to enforce it.
Well, right, so but what I'm saying is you're not putting one sign on one side of the street. All you're doing is to the entrance of that neighborhood, right?
Currently, right now.
Like you go into different neighborhoods, you're right, the sign is posted at the entrance, and it's talking about either side, so it's not necessarily more signs, it's just more specified on the sign as to the details, right? So you're not necessarily putting a sign on both sides,
And
right?
we can do that, I just don't know how to work with enforcement if we're specifying a wide range of what days.
So you're, to my point, we're not putting more signs up, just more specifics on the sign.
Yeah,
right? The
if we
posting.
got down to detail about from noon to, 9 to 1, 1 to 4, we'd have to put more signs, but enforcement-wise, I'm not sure how it'll work if we do what you're talking about. If we do once a month, you're parking on one side of the street versus the other side of the street, it's gonna have to designate which side of the street you're on when you enter that neighborhood.
Because, I mean, you're going to have to do that anyway in certain neighborhoods. We've already decided that.
Yeah. But not the entire city. I mean, we're just trying to, like I said, figure it out as we go here.
Mayor, as we started talking about this, what I recall us talking about, and Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, if your street is Monday, if your street sweeping is Monday and it's the 1st and the 3rd, that on one side of the street, the 1st would be posted, you can't park, right? So all the cars would move off, but the sweeper would still hit both sides, and they'd have to go around the cars. And then on the 3rd Monday, it would be posted on the other side that you can't park on that side, and then that would get a good clean, and we would still sweep on the other side and go around the cars. Did we discard that because we couldn't do it for signage or other issues?
But that is exactly what I recall us talking about, Linda.
That's what I recall, but I'm wondering if, as we looked at enforcement, as we worked with waste management and what the sweeper could or couldn't do, that maybe that didn't work, so then we had to look at something else? Is that how we got to?
I recall that as part of the discussion. What I recalled is that was one of the logistical ways we might accomplish this. And also remember there were conversations about whether or not there was like an AM and PM to try to get the sweeper out there twice a month, so that one resident isn't getting full service twice a month, while another resident may only be getting that full service once a month. And then in some cases, some neighborhoods, they don't have the parking issue that other neighborhoods do. So the 9 to 4 blanket signage was completely acceptable. So I apologize if we misinterpreted the direction.
I think we're making this harder than it has to be. It's not like other cities haven't adopted street sweeping ordinances on opposite sides of streets. It's possible to do. It's out there. And I think we should take into consideration our residents as well as sweeping. It's just, we're not doing something for the first time ever that other cities haven't done. That people do it on the opposite sides of the street. It's possible to do it. Is there more work to it for our staff? Yeah, there is. Is there more work to it for our street sweeping company? But at the convenience for our residents, and let them sweep one side of the street, let them park on one side, and let them park on the other side. That's just my 2 cents on the issue. But it's not like something that's never been done in another city. People have been sweeping streets and moving cars to one side of the road and the other for years. So.
And if I may, so absolutely, staff could go back and relook at that again. Tonight's resolution only reassigns the dates of the month throughout the city, so that as we progress, because we haven't done anything beyond College Park or the Preserve yet. Nothing's been done. In fact, I don't even believe signs have been ordered yet for the area referenced in red. So there's been really no cost other than staff time that's been spent on this yet. So we certainly can go back and refine our approach.
So Dennis, you're saying tonight we're going to approve the days in each areas, and then we'll go back and look at the details?
Correct.
Yes, sir. So, and the days can't change because they will be the day after the trash pickup?
We understand that.
And if the council would like us to do it by different community and area, and we decide how to do it, and we bring those back to the council, so we can say, okay, the green area, we're ready to go, and this is how we're going to set it up, so that the council has an idea. And plus, we can let the public know as well, so it'll be an additional notification.
I think that's appropriate, because one size does not fit all. What fits in one neighborhood may not fit in another, so I think to try to do it all at once is not practical. I think you need to tackle it area at a time that makes sense. And your color chart may change as you really scrutinize these neighborhoods. So I would suggest bringing them back a section at a time as you tackle it. Is council in agreement with that?
Yes.
Is that okay, Karen, with you? Okay. So then should
But
we?
Mayor, I do think we should strive to get people the opportunity to park on the opposite side of their street.
We're going to look at that, depending on the neighborhood. Some neighborhoods it won't be necessary.
I understand that, but I just want to make sure that it's clear because it hasn't been clear to the staff in the past.
Okay, so is it appropriate to move forward with the resolution as it stands now?
And that's just setting the days.
Correct.
Day after sweeping. That would be appropriate.
Okay, so then I would ask for a motion and a second for number 14 to adopt the days that the neighborhoods will be swept. Motion from Councilman Flores, second from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, and the item passes 4 yes with 1 absent. Item number 15, award of construction contract, CDBG Alley Project G6220. Award of construction contract to Wheeler Paving Incorporated, Riverside, California, in the amount of $396,135 for project number G6220, CDBG Alley Project east-west north of Chino Avenue between 9th Street and 13th Street. I'd like to ask for a staff report from our principal engineer, Michelle Henderson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. The Community Development Block Grant 2023-24 one-year action plan was approved by City Council on May 2nd, 2023, and recommended funding for an alley improvement project. The CDBG program provides annual grants on a formula basis to state, cities, and counties to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and a suitable living environment, and by expanding economic opportunities principally for low and moderate income persons. Improvements to the east-west alley north of Chino Avenue, south of D Street between 9th Street and 13th Street, as shown on the exhibit, was identified for use of the eligible funds. The scope of work includes reconstruction of alley pavement, including curb and gutter, alley approaches, and compliant accessibility ramps. RKA Consulting Group completed the civil design under a selection from the city's on-call list. On April 4, 2023, staff published a formal notice inviting bids via the city's Planet Bids website and locally on April 8 and April 15, 2023. The lowest responsible bidder was determined to be Wheeler Paving Inc. of Riverside, California, with the base bid amount of $396,135. Staff is therefore recommending City Council award a construction contract in the amount of $396,135 to Wheeler Paving Inc. for the CDBG Alley Project G6220. Staff is also recommending authorization to spend up to $39,614 for construction management costs, $19,807 for inspection costs, and $59,421 for contingency costs, for a total potential project cost of $514,977. Finally, staff is recommending an appropriation of $205,000 from the unappropriated reserves of the Sanitation Fund 550 with a corresponding increase to Project G6220 for a revised project budget of $579,824.54. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions from Michelle on this project? Curtis?
I'm still trying to kind of understand the bidding process, if you can help me. I'm looking at the original bid from Wheeler at $396,135, and then there's some associated costs that are added to that to make a grand total of $514,977. These other construction companies that also offered their bids, could they have included those additional costs, or is that always on top of the original bid? Does that make sense?
Correct. Yes, those costs that are listed, the construction management, inspection, and contingency are in addition to the contractor's base bid, so those costs will always be there.
And that would have been for every single bid that we received, correct?
Correct. And those are costs that are not being performed by Wheeler Paving. Those are in addition to staff costs reflected there.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Michelle, why do we charge extra for that? Are we hiring outside contractors to do the inspections and the management?
We either will have city staff or outside contractors perform that. But it is a cost for the city that we do need to allocate for each project. Whether it's just the staff time or outside consultant staff time that's dedicated to that project.
For some reason, I don't recall doing that before.
We've been doing that probably for 3 years now. I think that we have primarily contractors who are coming in to do this extra work. And then the staff in-house, like what's an example of in-house staff that we'd be assigning to that?
Like an inspector.
Okay.
But when we figure our budget, we don't figure this income. When you're doing your staff costs and all that kind of stuff, when we're doing our overall budget, which we haven't adopted yet for next year, there's no line item in there for construction.
Well, this isn't income. These are costs that we pay.
Well, but if it's our own staff, that's embedded costs because it's our staff. If it's an outside contractor, we pay. But if we're doing it in-house.
The inspection costs would also cover the geotechnical inspection, which is a contractual cost.
I think it's all contracts that we have. Inspection costs, because the inspections sometimes are a contract outside of our city.
Correct.
Ones
there are inspections, correct, that are not city inspections.
So are these just automatic percentages that you attach to contracts, whether we know whether we're going to do it in-house or outside contractors?
So the contingency, I think, is at 15% for public works projects.
Well, I understand contingencies because there's always change orders, but I'm talking about the inspections and the
Inspection
management.
and contract management
Yeah.
is typically 10% added to the project. And then if those aren't used, then they go back into the general fund or the project.
Goes back into the general fund, but yet it
Or
was.
the project, if it's transportation money, if it's storm drain money, it'll go back into that fund if it's not used.
Any questions?
I guess not a question, but just a statement. I mean, I don't know. I think I'd like to see us, possibly pursuing, keeping that in-house more than, just assigning the work to our consultants. But yeah.
If we, sorry to keep pursuing this, if we are hiring construction management, then do we actually get a bid from a construction management company to what they would charge to manage this contract?
That depends on the scope of the project. Sometimes we do pursue a specific proposal for construction management, or we would select them from our on-call list of consultants.
And how was this one handled? Did we get an outside bid?
For this one, no, this would be from our on-call.
From your on-call. So you just picked 10%.
That's how much we've allocated for the project.
When Amr came on as our Public Works Director, he changed the way that we did projects. And when you contract out certain parts of the project, like construction management, we don't have to have the staff to do that, and we've reduced the amount of staff we have in the Public Works Department for this. And this is why he can get so many projects going at the same time, and why we can finish the projects and get them out the door. So that was a change that he made as the Public Works Director to make it faster and more efficient for us to do these projects.
Okay. I guess I'm just troubled because we can't say for sure whether we planned on going outside or inside on this. It's just a fee that was assigned to it. But if you're going to go outside and say they charge 20% because it's complicated, then we're going to eat the cost.
I think it's a 10%, right? 10% for construction management, 10% for inspection.
Right.
That's what we add to every single project, and then it's 15% contingency.
It's 5% inspection.
5%?
Yes.
That's what's on it.
5, 10, and 15. Is that right?
Okay, any questions? Okay, then I would entertain a motion second if there's no other discussion. Motion from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, second from Councilman Flores. Item 15 passes. 4 yes, 1 absent. Item number 16, notice of completion, SD 200 Benson Avenue Storm Drain Project. Accept SD 200 Benson Avenue Storm Drain Project as complete and authorize the Director of Public Works to file a notice of completion. Michelle Henderson will also provide this report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. On July 6, 2021, the city awarded a contract to CP Construction Company in the amount of $1,848,455. The project is located along the west side of Benson Avenue, extending from Philadelphia Street to the south and approximately 500 feet north of Francis Avenue, primarily west of the city boundary with City of Ontario. A portion of the project does cross into their jurisdiction. This storm drain improvement project is identified in the City of Chino Master Plan of Drainage and is intended to mitigate the reoccurring flooding in the area. Construction consisted of installation of 2,800 lineal feet of reinforced concrete pipe, catch basins, shoulder paving, and striping. City Council has approved 5 contract change orders throughout the project's construction for an amount of $468,983.62 to address various unforeseen field conditions, to allow for coordination and processing of requests received by the City of Ontario, and to allow the project to continue in the face of anticipated interferences rather than waiting for them to be relocated. Additional costs were incurred due to timing conflicts with private development work in Philadelphia Avenue. As a result of the change orders, the project was completed nearly a year in advance of the original schedule by avoiding relocation of Edison poles within the storm drain alignment. All improvements within the project scope have been successfully constructed per terms of the construction contract. The photos presented here will show the before and after conditions of the roadway during the storm events. As you can see, the project successfully conveyed the flow from these storms into the storm drain system. At this time, staff is recommending that City Council accept the Benson Avenue Storm Drain Project SD 200 with CP Construction Company under contract number 2022-063 as complete, release the retention funds following the 35-day lien period, and authorize the Director of Public Works to file the notice of completion. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on item number 16? Seeing none, council comments, questions? I tell you, during this last rainy season, it was surely appreciated because Benson would flood and all that dirt and rock and everything would flush clear out onto the street. There is still a little bit of flooding on the Ontario side where they don't have any storm drains, but
Colander.
yeah. But on our side, it's a whole heck of a lot better. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion in a second then for approval of item number 16. Motion from Councilman Burton, second from Councilman Flores. Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent. Item number 17, appropriation of funds, ST 203, Pine Avenue improvements. Approve an appropriation of $650,000 from the Transportation Fund 320 with a backfill from unappropriated reserves of the Bridges, Signals, and Thoroughfare Preserve Development Impact Fee Fund, count 260, and increase the project budget for the Pine Avenue Improvement Project, ST 203. Michelle, you're up again.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Project number ST-203 is identified as the Pine Avenue Improvement Project between Euclid and Hellman Avenues. Pine Avenue is a master plan facility which will ultimately be a 6-lane arterial roadway with a raised landscape median and is being constructed in phases. Phase 1 improvements, known as stages 1 through 3 and stage 4, are being constructed by the Chino Preserve Development Corporation, also known as Lewis, pursuant to a construction and credit reimbursement agreement for Pine Avenue entered into with the city. Stage 1 and 2 improvements consisting of widening Pine Avenue to 4 lanes between Euclid and Meadowhouse Avenue have been completed by Lewis. A segment of Stage 4 improvements fronting the Town Center commercial project are currently under construction. The city's Pine Avenue widening project is currently in design and will be improving and widening the section of Pine Avenue from Euclid Avenue to Johnson Avenue to 6 lanes and raising the elevation of the roadway. A total of $2,466,695 has been earmarked for Lewis's reimbursement of the Stage 4 Pine Avenue improvement segment located adjacent to the Fallon Crest project, which is generally on the north side of Pine Avenue between East and West Preserve loops. In order to keep these funds separate from the city's project, those earmarked funds led to a transfer out of Fund 320, which created a shortfall in this account to cover the remaining approved work expected to be completed this fiscal year for the city's project. To proceed with the design of the city's project, staff is recommending an appropriation of $650,000 from the Transportation Fund 320, backfilled by the Bridges, Signals, and Thoroughfares Preserve Development Impact Fee Fund 260, with a corresponding increase to Project ST-203 for a revised overall project budget of $4,568,113. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Michelle, I have a question. You're going to backfill out of account number 260. Is that going to leave that account, the Bridges, Signals, and Thoroughfare, short when we need that money for bridges or whatever?
My understanding is that that gets back, well, if we're taking from that account, then it's backfilled. Maybe Rob can better explain.
I can address that a little bit, Mayor. So the DIF funds are collected based on the projects that are proposed to be completed.
Right.
So this is going to be one of those proposed projects. So using the money for this project wouldn't take away funds from other projects. There's other money being collected for those projects as well. So there should be sufficient funds to complete all the projects that are included in the DIF program.
But you're backfilling from an unrelated account.
Well, it should be a related account. I don't know if it's unrelated.
This would be a related account because the project would be funded through the Development Impact Fee program.
Yep. thoroughfares, so bridges, signals, and thoroughfares. It's not just bridges.
Well, you're gonna take X amount of dollars from the transportation fund, 320, and then you're gonna backfill it
Yeah,
from.
the expenditure occurs in the transportation fund, but the funding comes from the bridges, signals, and thoroughfares. All of our, almost all of our street projects, signal projects, they are expended out of the 320 fund, but then they get backfilled with other revenue sources to pay for those expenditures. But
So we're
that's-
not gonna be short in the long run and can't complete a project?
No, we won't be short at all.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anyone in the audience would like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, council comments? Then we would need a motion and a second, please. Motion from Councilman Burton, second from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock. Item passes, 4 yes, 1 absent. Okay, next, under Mayor and Council reports, item number 18, receive and file a legislative update and consider new legislative position letters. This is a review of tracked legislation and updates. Our staff report will be provided by Jack Morgan, Assistant to the City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The Legislative Policy Committee met on May 24th to receive an update on tracked pieces of legislation and to review new pieces of legislation that are continuing on in the legislative process. Now, before I provide an overview of the currently tracked pieces of legislation as well as the recommendations from the Legislative Policy Committee, I want to briefly detail some of the legislative and outreach activities that staff has undertaken. First, as mentioned by members of the council already, from April 12th to the 14th, Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, Councilmember Flores, and myself had the opportunity to meet with State Senator Rubio and Assemblymember Rodriguez in Sacramento to discuss bills that have been considered at both the Legislative Policy Committee meetings as well as the council meeting. Then on April 19th, staff, including City Manager Reich, Assistant City Manager Melendez, Chief Simmons, and myself, we also met with the CDCR Director of Facility Planning, Construction, and Management, Dave Lewis at CIM. At this meeting, we discussed the state of CDCR, future improvements beneficial to Chino, as well as the Heman G. Stark Youth Correctional Facility. Now, on that last point, CDCR noted the cost concerns to upgrade Stark to meet code, which certainly has implications on its future uses for purposes of rehabilitation as well as corrections. And then finally, on May 5th, staff had the chance to have an additional briefing with State Senator Rubio and her team. She shared her concerns and agreement with some of the issues we've had with bills that we've discussed, both on the public safety front as well as land use. And what came out of that, when we'll go through it a little bit more, and with Senate Bill 423 was discussed with her. And as a reminder, this bill would allow the Department of General Services to act as a local agency for streamlined review of multifamily housing on land that's owned or leased by the state. We're currently working with her office on potential solutions. And although this legislation has been moving forward, it's important to note that State Senator Rubio did not vote on this bill, which in Sacramento, that's generally perceived as a no vote. So as we look at what we're currently at with what the legislation that we're tracking, I do have a listing here. I'll briefly go over some of them. Now, some of these bills this will be the last time we're looking at them for this year. You'll see that we have 2-year bills next to a few of them. I believe in total there are 8 of them. That really means that these pieces of legislation did not get the support necessary to continue on in the process. And so some of them have included bills from Assemblymember Rodriguez, like the workforce adjustment for ground ambulance transports. That bill had to do with insurance reimbursements to help really increase pay for private ambulance services. It does not really impact the city of Chino. This is an issue that is important to Assemblymember Rodriguez, and so we wanted to support his efforts with that. There's a few more that he also introduced, like the disaster preparedness as the California Emergency Services. That was going to coordinate efforts for fuel transport for 2 agencies that are actively responding to an emergency. And then when we have Prop 47 bills, all of those eventually became 2-year bills. And in all of those instances, they're trying to undo some of the provisions that Prop 47 has implemented. We're seeing more and more of those coming
Jack,
Yeah.
as you're talking, a lot of times the audience don't understand what these propositions were.
Right.
So if you could just quickly refer to the number and then say
Right.
it did.
And I can go through those. So, for example, so SB 316, this is one that is now a 2-year bill. And so this has to do with, again, it's one of the Prop 47 bills.
Again, what was Prop 47?
Prop 47, this was enacted, I believe, in 2014, and this changed the different thresholds when it comes to theft, and also by doing so, it's going to really allow for certain, what would normally be criminals to be then released out. And so it's going to county facilities. We're seeing a lot of these folks coming back out into society, and they're not rehabilitated, so then we're seeing an increase in theft. So SB 316, the intent of this bill, and again, it's not going to continue on, this bill was a reinstated provision of law that was repealed by Prop 47 that provides that a person who's been convicted of 3 or more times of petty theft, grand theft, or other specified crimes, and who is subsequently convicted of petty theft is subject to imprisonment in a county jail not exceeding 1 year, or in a county jail for 18 months or 2 to 3 years. This is one example of one of the Prop 47 bills that it's been extended to 2 years. This will come back, and we'll continue to monitor those bills as they make their way back. On a positive note, AB 797, this one did not continue forward. We took an opposition stance against this bill, and this one would require a governing body of each city and county by January 15, 2025 to create an independent community-based commission on law enforcement officer practices. And so that one did not continue on. It's our understanding and working with Gonzalez and Son, we'll see this one back in the next legislative session, but for purposes of this year, will not continue. I do want to highlight, again, SB 423. So that one's going to have really large implications for the city of Chino. That one's an extension of Senate Bill 35, and the intent of that was to streamline multifamily housing. What this did is it's continuing that, but it's going to add a caveat that really has implications for us, is allowing, and I had mentioned earlier, Department of General Services to act as a local agency for multi-unit housing on state that's owned or leased by, or a property owned or leased by the state. And certainly with CIM in the middle of our city, that has huge implications. And so we've been communicating with State Senator Rubio on that bill. And she's working on our behalf and contacting the author of this bill to see what we can do to try to prevent that from impacting us. I also want to mention Senate Bill 536. This was authored by Senator Rubio. This is the Heman G. Stark Youth Correctional Facility. So I know we had introduced this one. This would really open discussions with CDCR as well as the Department of General Services, who acts almost like the real estate agent for the state of California. And this would allow us to potentially acquire that site. Now, we've been working, State Senator Rubio has also been working with CDCR, and as I'd mentioned, we had met with CDCR on this property. It appears that this may turn into a 2-year bill. That's normal with these kinds of pieces of legislation. We saw that with the city of Norwalk. And so we're thinking that this may be turning into a 2-year bill. We do have a site plan that's been submitted. That's one thing that the senator had requested, so we could show exactly what we intend to do. And now it's very preliminary, because ultimately we would want to master plan this site with stakeholders and have a more comprehensive plan. But we do have that ready. We're reviewing it right now. It had a pretty thorough analysis. It wasn't just a couple maps. There was an analysis involved. And we were taking pieces of what the council had mentioned during public meetings. So that was the criteria that we used and the parameters that we used.
But it can be revised, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, and we know that it's preliminary. I think the senator just wants to be able to provide something to CDCR showing what we intend to do, that we're serious about it, and that we have a plan in place and an idea of how we'd like to move forward.
It's suggested to Linda that we work with, when it comes to the ag land, that we work with experts in that area to make sure we do it right.
She asked us to provide just an overview.
Right.
And it can be revised to help advance our relinquishment of it. Thank you for your help on that too, Jack.
No worries.
Jack, can we get a copy of that once the final preliminary?
Yeah, this shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, we're still reviewing it. We just want to make sure that everything reads well and it reads exactly how we want it to before we send it to, ultimately probably send it to Gonzalez and Son to work with the staff with Senator Rubio. And then the last bill I want to mention, AB 250, it's a relinquishment of Euclid Avenue to the city of Chino. That bill is moving forward. So it started, it's an assembly bill. It's already in the Senate policy, kind of phase now. We haven't seen any pushback on that, so that bill would likely, we're going to see that move through the process. And then lastly, I just wanted to note a few bills that we want to continue to track. So we mentioned in the staff report, and it was discussed at the policy committee, Assembly Bill 742. Now, this had to do with police K-9 deployments. I will note, since then, the legislature changes all the time. This one has been removed, and I'll move this one. There it is. So I have them listing right here. This one did not get the support needed, so that's now a 2-year bill. We did receive word of that from Jason Gonzalez. So that one is going to continue on probably next year, but we will not see it this year. But I wanted to note it because we did mention at the policy committee, and at the time, as we were writing the staff report for tonight, this was continuing forward. This bill would isolate the use of police K-9s to very specific circumstances, and really would be unreasonable to a responding officer of knowing all the facts that are pertinent into arriving at a scene and knowing whether or not you can actually deploy a police K-9. There were some other restrictions that were included, but as we stand today, this will not continue.
I actually spoke to Assemblyman Rodriguez, and he assured me that he had spoken very strongly against it, voted against it, and he said the author did not have the votes to push it forward, so it turned it into a 2-year bill.
Yeah, and when we were speaking,
have to continue watching it.
And we were speaking with Senator Rubio on May 5th. She was pushing against that bill as well. I think Jason, who kind of has more insider knowledge on some of these things, he had mentioned that if this were to go to the Senate, it was going to have a tough time getting through. And so it didn't even make it that far. Assembly Bill 1034, that is moving forward. So this bill would prohibit a law enforcement agency or law enforcement officer from installing, activating, or using a biometric surveillance system. This is really having to do with facial recognition. The League of California Cities has taken an official stance against it. It's taking away a tool that the Chino Police Department uses responsibly, and it's taking away a tool that will prevent criminal activity. And so the policy committee has recommended that we send a letter of opposition to that bill. The last two bills, so it's AB 480 and SB 747, they are inherently conflicting one another. So if both are adopted, there's going to have to be some reconciliation done. They really have to do with the Surplus Land Act. So I'll start with AB 480. So AB 480 undermines the ability of local agencies to conduct appropriate economic development activities pursuant to state economic opportunity law, which is existing. And the California Association of Local Economic Development notes is comprised of legislation in the wake of RDA dissolution, which authorized local agencies to acquire and dispose of property in the furtherance of creation of economic development opportunity. The most recent legislation that amended this law was in 2015, so it was at the time Assembly Bill 806, and that allowed for an alternative process where the respective legislative body could, by resolution after a public hearing, sell or lease land to create an economic development opportunity. This bill is almost trying to codify what the California Department of Housing and Community Development adopted in April 2021 as a series of guidelines on how they're going to administer the Surplus Land Act, and it included any action to dispose land. So it conflicted with what is existing in law. The way that this is being described is it's going to try to codify some of that language and some addition, but it boils down to that issue. And I know that's what the California Association for Local Economic Development has really been arguing. So the policy committee is recommending that the city take an opposition to it, and then on the final bill, the one that counters that is SB 747. This would be to support it, and SB 747 would intend to clarify certain parts of the Surplus Land Act, and more importantly, reaffirm existing economic opportunity law. Some aspects of the bill includes clarification that leases more than 15 years, which when we met with the policy committee was 35. That was amended to 15. CalEd is continuing to say that they support the bill. So I think with their understanding that it's been amended and their continued support, I think it would be appropriate to continue with the recommendation that the policy committee had put together. So that would clarify that leases more than 15 years are subject to the Surplus Land Act. It also calls for exemptions to the Surplus Land Act to assist transit-oriented development, airports, or other important agency uses, which overall attempts to bolster economic opportunity law as a means to expand jobs and local economic development opportunities post-RDA dissolution. So those were the additional bills. We're going to be kind of removing some from our list, but overall, we have 3 here, with AB 742 no longer being a bill we're tracking. And so given that this bill intends to promote local control, Legislative Policy Committee recommends that the council support this legislation and the 2 other, and then oppose AB 1034 and AB 480. So that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Jack. Karen, do you want to make comments?
Mayor, I would just say that we have talked about this before in past meetings, that tracking this legislation is important. Jack, I want to thank you for the presentation you provided. I think it's helpful to our residents to see some of this legislation that we are tracking that has a direct impact to us from public safety. And in particular, you were talking about the voter-based initiative Proposition 47. We're still dealing with fallout from that from a law enforcement perspective. I also believe that these meetings more frequently are improving our relationship with our local elected officials. We've seen, like I told the mayor, we're not going to win on every single thing, but we're not at the table and don't make the ask. We can't even get it. So it's improving our partnership there with people in Sacramento, and I look forward to just more work on a lot of these legislative issues. And some of them are going to immediately benefit us as far as Euclid and including the Youth Authority. I do believe we'll be successful in that at one point. So that's all I have to say, Mayor. Thank you.
I do think, and I agree, the meetings are very, very good. Really enjoy Jack's summary of what's going on, keeping us up to date, and then working with Mr. Gonzalez as well. However, our new policy is a bit too restrictive. Like, for instance, on AB 742, if Jackson had the support of it by the time we write the letter of opposition, it's too late. So somehow we're going to have to be more responsive in a timely manner. And I know that was one concern from a couple of council members, that they wanted to say in what we did and what we wrote when we sent things. But if it makes us behind the power curve, then we're defeating our own purpose. So somehow, Jack, we're going to have to work with the policy and revise it, or do something so that we can respond to these things timely and not have to wait for council meetings, because we're gonna lose our opportunity to be effective. And the old way, we could be effective immediately, but we can't now. Our hands are tied. So we're gonna have to re-examine the policy on legislative action and figure out how we can be responsive in a timely manner.
Okay. Yeah, no, we can certainly bring that back. I know the current version of the policy was created through a workshop process, so
Right.
if we need to revisit it, we can certainly do so through council resolution.
Well, we're gonna have to. We're gonna have to if we're gonna be timely. So this is to receive and file. There are letters in the packet. There are 4. One of them we don't need to sign now because it's too late, but I need to sign 3 of them. If there's no opposition, verbal opposition to that, then I'll get those letters signed and we'll get them out. Okay? Okay. I'm going to make my report really, really short tonight because I know we still have to go into closed session. So on May 17th, City Manager Reich and I and Mayor Pro Tem Comstock met with Chino Hills Councilmember Ray Marquez and Brian Joes to talk about Pine Avenue and Euclid 91, the common transportation issues that we have, and trying to move forward, working cooperatively to get these issues fixed. On the 18th in the morning, I attended the Water Facilities Authority Board of Directors, and then left to attend the City Counties Conference up in Lake Arrowhead, which was held on Thursday, the 18th and the 19th. There was several of us that went on. The Councilman Kurt Burton and I were up there, Linda Reich, Jackie Melendez. It was a very, very good conference. I won't go into details, but I do encourage you to visit the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority website There's a recap of that conference with some notes in there. Let's see, on the 21st, I attended the Pioneer Picnic. That turned out very, very nice. On the 22nd, Mayor Pro Tem Comstock and I interviewed the first group of applicants for the Community Services Commission. We received a total of 16 applications. One dropped out. I think on that Monday we interviewed 3, with more to come, obviously. On the 23rd, I attended the application interviews for the new general manager of the Water Facilities Authority. On the 24th, I attended Raul Garnica's funeral and celebration of life. He was a gentleman that turned 100, and I think many of us did a drive-by birthday party for him when he turned, I think it was 99 or 98, in front of his house. He was such a special guy, and he was really hoping to hang on to 101, but the Lord brought him home, took him home early. Let's see. On the 29th, Monday the 29th, we had the Memorial Day event with the American Little League, Legion, which was also, that was really well attended. I was really pleased that so many people came out, and young people too. That was very nice. On the 30th, Mayor Pro Tem Comstock and I did a second round, or not a second round, but more interviews for the Community Services Commission. I think we interviewed six people on that day. Our final review interviews will come up on this Friday. Let's see. And my son flew in from Wisconsin, so that took lots of nice time. We had the final, or another group on June 2nd. Had some interviews, and that's it. That's what I'll report this evening. Our final interviews now will be tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll finish up the interviews, and then we'll be selecting those that will fill the vacancies.
I thought we were finishing them on Friday, Mayor.
Is it Friday?
Friday morning, right?
You're right, it's Friday morning.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I'm not absent tomorrow. Yeah.
No, yeah, it is Friday, I apologize.
Okay.
From 8 to 11, we're doing the final reviews. And then I have to go to the fire department at noon, do something for them. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Comstock.
Thank you, ma'am. On Wednesday, May 17th, I also attended the meeting with the mayor and staff in Chino Hills to discuss the development transportation projects of mutual concern. On Monday, May 22nd, I attended my weekly meeting with the city manager, and then I participated in the Community Services Commission interview with the mayor. It's already been discussed. That evening, I also attended the Community Services Commission meeting here in the council chambers. The subject of Chino National Little League lighting the ball field at Heritage Park came up during that meeting. It was well attended by members of Chino National Little League. There was also some letters of opposition read in the meeting. If you have a concern regarding this issue, please plan to attend the next meeting of the Community Services Commission on Monday, June 26th, here at 6 p.m. so that your position on this issue can be heard. On Wednesday, May 24th, I attended the Public Works Appreciation Luncheon. I want to thank you to all of our directors and staff who made that possible. Lupe, Almer, a lot of people down at Public Works. They had a nice barbecue. It was a nice day to appreciate all the hard work that our Public Works personnel puts into making sure our streets, our roads, our sewers, our water, and everything functions. Things that we don't think about until they're not functioning any longer. On the 24th, I also attended the Legislative Policy Committee meeting with the mayor and our staff. I just want to again thank Jack, Vivian, Jackie, and the city manager for your ongoing help with this process. Later that evening, I attended the commencement ceremony for the graduates at Buena Vista High School. I want to thank all of the teachers in the Chino Valley Unified School District for all the hard work you do across the district, and congratulations on another successful school year. On Monday, May 29th, I attended the Community Memorial Day ceremony that the mayor spoke about in partnership with the Legion. It was an excellent event. It was a great day and well attended by our community. On Tuesday, May 30th, I participated in more interviews for the Community Service Commission. We have some very good candidates, Mayor. We have one round of interviews left this week, and we're going to have a difficult decision ahead of us because there's been a lot of good applicants in this process. I also want to thank everybody that has shown interest and applied for this position. On Wednesday, May 31st, I attended our quarterly meeting with the Chino Valley Fire Board, our staff, and of course, our Fire Chief Dave Williams to discuss operational issues of mutual concern. On Friday, June 2nd, the mayor and I hosted an additional round of Community Services Commission interviews. And on Monday, June 5th, I attended my weekly meeting with the city manager. Mayor, just also want to last shout out to the Boxing Club for all the great work that they're doing, and congratulations to Pro Towing on the Business of the Month. Brings me to tonight where I attended closed session, and we'll be reconvening back there when we're done here, Mayor. That's my report. Thank you.
Councilman Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. On May 17th, I attended the Planning Commission meeting. The 18th and 19th, along with the mayor, went to the city-county conference up in Lake Arrowhead. The 22nd and 23rd, I attended the International Council of Shopping Centers in Las Vegas with Assistant City Manager Melendez as well as city staff. The 24th, I attended the Public Works Luncheon with the Mayor Pro Tem. 29th, Memorial Day event. June 2nd was a very busy day. I attended the Energy Summit meeting with Councilmember Lucio. Then I went to the Tiny Tots preschool graduation, which was very well attended, outstanding event put on by Community Services. What a great program that is. Had the opportunity to hand my grandson his certificate of graduation from Tiny Tots. I then toured the development down the preserve with city staff, and then topped it off with the investment committee meeting at the end of the day with Councilmember Flores. On the 5th, I had a meeting with the city manager, and then today, the 6th, closed session in reference to labor negotiations, which we're still going through. So that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Councilman Flores.
Thank you, Mayor. May 19th, I attended the Argonza Cellars Winery grand opening. On the 20th, I attended the Don Lugo Sports Boosters fundraiser over at the Avocado House. On May 29th, I helped the Kiwanis Club, along with Charlene King and Judy, put up the American flags that we see up on Central Avenue. On that same day, I attended the American Legion Memorial Day service. On the 31st of May, I attended the Chino Hills State of the City. On the 2nd of June, I, along with Councilmember Kurt, attended the Investment Committee. Earlier in that day, I attended the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce Leadership Collaborative Group, and I'm very happy to say that the collaborative group project has been pivoted, and Chief Williams, as you may already know, we're going to be focusing our community project around the Heart Safe, Bleed Safe program. So we're very excited about that, and so again, we'll keep you updated. And I just want to say congratulations to all our Chino staff who graduated this graduating season. There was a sweet post that was posted by City of Chino, so I was happy to see a lot of graduates up there. And to the Boxing Club, as you guys already heard, I will be in the ring, I guess, July something. So
Ding, ding.
Here we go.
You better wear a big helmet. City Manager Reich.
No report tonight, Mayor.
City Attorney Galante.
No report either. Thank you.
Chief of Police, Wes Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to take this opportunity to share with our community that this week we began staffing our temporary southeast substation, which is located at Station 63 on Kimball Avenue. So I want to thank the fire department for allowing us to be there. As you know, the council, as we discussed last year during the budget workshop, while we're preparing and planning to have a permanent facility, in the meantime, we wanted to get something up and running so residents can immediately take advantage of that. So Monday through Friday, currently we're going to staff it between 8 and 7 p.m. with a police service officer. So residents are able to come in there. If they want to take, we'll have the ability to take minor criminal reports, no suspect info type reports, and provide general information to the public. And we were down there on Monday. We already had a resident who saw our post and came in and was very, very appreciative of this new service available. So we're excited for that. And of course, thank you again to our partners at the Chino Valley Fire Department for allowing us to occupy that area. We'll be on the west side, So on the west side of the facility, there's a little driveway and parking stalls in there and a door that comes in, so we won't actually have to go through the fire station. It'll be separate on the side.
And I'm sure they're going to be very well fed down there at the fire department.
No
Our
comment,
employees.
but probably. That's all I have to report unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much, Wes. Chief Williams, thank you for accommodating our PD.
No, thank you for reaching out, and Chief Simmons, thank you very much. As those kinds of opportunities come around, thank you for being sensitive to some of the needs that we had out there and recrafting that room, so we appreciate it. As far as a report for me, I did want to report out that as of Monday, the county did make a somewhat of a decision. They've decided they want to negotiate with both us and AMR. So nothing really clarified at this point. What I will say is if there are any relationships that are established that the councilor and that the mayor may have at that level, and you're not involved in any of the NDA process, and if you don't have an NDA signed because you're involved in the process, I would encourage you to reach out and demonstrate your support for Confire as the JPA that would like to win that contract. And that's all I have for you unless you have any questions.
Are they considering keeping AMR plus Confire?
All I can tell, no, it won't be both. All I can tell you at this point is what I understand is that we both provided our presentations, and at this time, the county would like to enter into negotiations with both entities, ending up ultimately with one. But that's really all I have at this point. I wish I could give you more, but I don't have more. But again, I would encourage you, if you do have relationships intact and you are in support of Confire as Chino Valley Fire District is a member of, winning that contract, then I think it might be a good time to have some conversations and demonstration of support.
Okay, will do. Thank you very much, Dave. Okay, with that, we will be recessing back into closed session to finish the items that, or the one item that's listed on our agenda. When we come back, we will be adjourning to our next regular meeting, which will actually be a workshop on June 13th at 4:00 p.m., with our next regular meeting being June 20th at 6 p.m. Closed session no sooner than 4 on that day. But right now, we are adjourning back into closed session.